Morning, Oak.
Mr. Chairman, we're live.
Okay, welcome everybody. Today is December 19th. This is our weekly county commissioner meeting. This time I please ask everyone to rise. Follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody get a chance to look at the agenda. I think we got everything on there that we should have.
I think I may have messed up. I'd asked Gabby, and I think this might be true, but so the discussion at 9:45 on the health comprehensive plan grants, and I think it's the same one as the 2:30 Blue Cross of Idaho audit. Ask her that, but I'm assuming, Doug, that's.
And I asked her about that too, Commissioner Mott, and I think it is a duplicate posting of an agenda item, just different wording.
Okay, that's what I'm worried about too. So we may have to amend that and move something up. Maybe take off the 2:30 and just discuss it this morning.
Do you think the email, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it looks the same. So let's take off the one at 2:30, shall we?
Yeah. that way
So I would
it's fine.
entertain an amendment to the motion to approve that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend the agenda to remove the 2:30 action item, the Blue Cross of Idaho audit on the comprehensive plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove the 2:30 agenda item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And now I need a motion to approve the amended, or we could add that to it.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the amended agenda.
A second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll get right into our agenda. These are all action items. The first one will be the meeting minutes of December 12th. Everybody good with those?
Sent over some corrections to Doug.
And you got those updated?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I would move that we approve the meeting minutes of December 12th.
I'll second.
moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, the next one is an action item. This is a letter of support for the city of Cascade for Parks and Rec grant for the Strand Trail and the North Fork Payette River Water Trail. And that should be in your packet.
I have no problem with that. I thought we had already done the Strand, but maybe that was their paving or something else, but this includes the North Fork Payette River Trail, so.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I have no problem with it.
This is for a CXT. Recast concrete toilet.
Oh, so they're adding that to the Strand.
So there's not a bathroom down there now? I guess there isn't, is there? Fisher Pond or anywhere around there?
Well, there is
You know,
a
I don't-
baseball diamond.
I don't think, there's not one at the south end. Or,
For sure.
no, I don't believe there is now.
Says it's at
That'd
the
be a really good addition. to
Payette
that.
River Water Trail
Yeah,
had put in.
definitely needed, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to approve that support letter, and then Doug can get it printed out on our letterhead, and all three of us sign it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the letter of support for the city of Cascade for the Idaho Department Parks and Rec grant for the Strand Trail.
I'll second.
Moved and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on down to our next agenda item. This is also an action item. This is a contract for Sunbelt Controls for the open system control upgrade. Scott, you want to add anything to this, or?
It's just kind of the start of our installing controls up in our mechanical room is what it is.
Scott, did you bring the agreement?
Yes, did you?
So the total for this is 24,950.
No, it's, this phase is only 24,000.
So there's more to this than,
Yeah, this is the first phase of it.
so is this mostly for, the first phase is up for heat or
Heating side
all heating side?
and install some of the necessary controls for what we do.
And this is in your budget, Scott.
Yeah.
And I think I saw,
It must be a different one you have up there, because that's not what I have here.
we have the bid contract for Sunbelt Controls.
24,950.
Yeah,
I think you misheard him, that's what he said.
Like I said, 44,000.
no, 24,000. I'm sorry, I'm kind of mumbling today. But does this fix the damper thing you were talking about
It
here?
will be when we do the next phase of it. And in budget year 2020, or the next budget year, we want to do the Wi-Fi thermostats in here and stuff. And Idaho Power will give us money for each one. I think about 18,000.
But my concern was, there's a lot of things that they have said specifically are excluded from this. So, I mean, roof penetrations. So if they go in and do any,
Well, don't have any, it's, basically, this is just all within the mechanical room there.
okay. Yeah, they just excluded a lot. Cutting, patching, painting, roof penetrations, bonding permits, other fees are all excluded. I was going, huh, well. I don't have any problems with
So the
that.
goal with this then, Scott, eventually is you'll be notified by cell phone if there's an issue
Yeah,
anywhere.
well, it would actually be a laptop or a desktop and the notifications there. If it's Saturday or Sunday and a pump shuts off, I can turn the number back on. We have the lead lag where right now, we don't know until, like right in the winter right now, till it starts getting cold in the jail.
Gotcha.
If we get a flame out on our boiler, one of our boilers, we'll know. We'll might be able to switch boilers if we want to go from one to the other, what we're looking at. The second phase, like you're talking about the louvers, we'll get it back in phase like it's supposed to work. I want to put a variable speed drive on the electrical motor.
Good, good.
Make it more efficient. And then, like I say, the kind of the final phase at this point is Wi-Fi thermostats here in the building.
All wiring conduct to be included as well as temp sensors and status monitoring. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and then make the motion that we approve the Sunbelt Control bid contract.
A second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I don't know, Scott, that's quite an upgrade.
That's a,
Technology improvement. I like your necklace.
I was trying to be festive. Oh, I like it.
Sporting my Christmas sweater.
we used to have an ugly sweater contest.
Oh, we should. Next year we need an ugly sweater contest.
They easily have won that
Is
one.
that for the upgrades just at the jail or the courthouse in general, Scott?
That one right there is, the mechanical room affects the courthouse, but the upgrades are all within the mechanical room up there.
Got it.
So this control module gonna be in your office, is that? No,
On the computer.
Yeah,
it is on the computer. So it's wherever you are. Good.
thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Have a good day. Okay, our next agenda item is an action item. This is an assessor request for cancellation of market value on number 18. Good morning, Mrs. Leeper.
Good morning. This is for Andrea Laird.
parcel number MHC 0483-006-0040. Christie, let's see, property owner registered the park model for 2022, obviously late in the season, through the DMV, and she mistakenly did not get it removed from the tax roll. So Ms. Laird received a tax bill. We are requesting that the full value of $37,895 be canceled.
There's no other improvements besides the park model?
Not on the MH.
Okay.
And I wasn't actually involved with this one, so I don't know if there's anything on the RP or not. I'm guessing probably there is, but
Okay.
I've got 4 people out ill today.
Oh,
So I need a motion to approve this cancellation.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the assessor's request for cancellation, market value number 18.
I'll second that.
Moved in second, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
So is this in the leisure time? Okay.
Yeah, Christie goes down in November every year, or she goes into the DMV and looks up to see if people have registered their park models or not, and if they haven't, they go on the rolls.
So if I just have 5 acres somewhere and I go out and put a park model on it, on a foundation, is that the same thing?
Well, yes, I mean, those are all condensed down there, but we do have park models throughout the county.
You do, okay.
And so we have a spreadsheet that where we try to keep track of all of them so that we can go to the DMV and see if they've registered or not. I wasn't involved in this one, but I think I overheard them say that they registered in a different county. Because our DMV girls here will go in and make a notation that it's been licensed on our spreadsheet to make Kristen's workflow a little bit more efficient. But I think, not sure, that this was registered in a different county.
Can I ask you a weird question, but if they go in and pour a foundation, set it on the foundation, then isn't that not mobile anymore? I mean, isn't there an improvement from the foundation? Because a lot of these,
Well,
at leisure time, are discarded.
if they did do that, they become more permanent, so they would be on the tax rolls permanently.
Right.
They become real
That's
property.
I don't know if we can call them real property or not.
Park models are supposedly mobile, is
I
that
know.
correct? Yeah. It's-
So if they're on a foundation though, I mean, that
Then they would
becomes
just stay on
real.
the tax rolls, and that person really doesn't have the option to register them anymore. Just like if they do a three-wall addition onto them that is like connected to it, they can't register it. It becomes.
So the whole thing comes on, not just the addition.
Yes. Right,
Right.
I think we're gonna start seeing more and more of the tiny homes
I think you're right.
up here, and so I'm just curious as to how we view those.
My rub all along has been they bring them in, set them up, and take the axles and wheels away. So how is this a portable thing anymore?
Right. Right.
But the state tax commission, I think it was, Cinda, it came back and said no. Or maybe it was the legislature, I don't remember. As an RV, if they're licensed.
Yeah.
Okay, did you get
Yep,
it?
I did. I'll
Okay.
be right back with a copy for Doug.
Okay, our next agenda item is an action item. This is a letter of support for Valley Soil and Water Conservation District for a foundation grant. And let's see.
Doug, if they've already filed that, do they still want this letter of support?
They do, Commissioner Mopin. They indicated that they would still like to have the letter of support to submit after the deadline, which was, I believe the deadline was today or last week, I can't remember, but
Last Wednesday,
they
yeah.
still want the letter of support from the county if the county is inclined to approve it.
And this is actually for a no-till drill. And they have one down at the Emmett office that's an 8-footer. And I think this one is smaller and lighter. So you can put it on, it goes on a 3-point hitch on the back of a tractor. It's not something you pull like a trailer. So it's heavy. So the one they have in Emmett, you have to have a pretty good sized tractor. I have rented it before and used it before up here. This one is smaller and it's on wheels, so you can hook onto it, I believe, with a smaller tractor for smaller landowners.
I think that was the discussion at Soil and Water, is they wanted something a little bit more mobile. And it was 3-point.
The
I
one,
think they already have one, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, they do.
Small.
It's at Emmett.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I don't see is that if it can drill grass seed, I'm assuming it can drill grass seed or grains or whatever. Doesn't say. But I think they've, like I said, they've already submitted this, so we just need to report them on it.
Yeah.
So I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue the letter of support for Valley Soil and Water for a no-till drill.
I'll second that.
Moved in second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, our next agenda item is an action item. This is a decision on planning and zoning membership numbers. And I believe now we have 5. There has been discussion to make that larger.
I'm not in favor of putting this as a decision. First of all, I think that Neil would like to have some information on this also and be able to comment on it. And I think that this needs a whole lot more information before we actually make a decision on it. I think that planning and zoning may even want to weigh in on this.
So part of the decision today could be to table it.
Yeah, I am not ready to make a decision on this in any way, shape, or form.
Any decision would just be for the Planning and Zoning Commission to hear it as part of an ordinance amendment, because the ordinance has 5 members listed. So you would have to actually change the ordinance, which you can request the P and Z to look at, so you would remand it to them. They would go through the public hearing process. I will tell you, I've talked to all the P and Z commissioners, and they are not in favor.
So did you notice, is there anything in Idaho code that restricts us to 5?
No.
No, you
5
can
to
range from like
11.
3 to 11 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Really?
3 to 11.
And I would like to hear from the planning and zoning commissioners why they feel that way.
Because I can tell you,
Okay, but I also would like to hear from the public. And what does the public think is appropriate?
Then it's appropriate to discuss it at a P and Z level.
so it would be an ordinance amendment.
Yeah.
Where they have a public hearing.
So
So if you took action today, it would be remanding it to them to hear it in a public hearing. I would have to write an amendment to the ordinance and they could hear it. But I can tell you why they're not in favor. Number one reason from the commissioners is because it would take way too much time. The meetings would go forever. They'd probably have to set 2 regular meetings every month. Because you're expanding the number of people that are going to be weighing in. One of them said, will just be 2 more people to beat the dead horse. Because when they discuss it, they each want to weigh in. The other concern, of course, was the seating arrangement. Their number one concern, what they would like to see is this fixed, the bench.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah. So it was mostly time.
I'm still working on that part of it. And if with your blessing, I'll continue to try to move that forward. It is a problem. However, to get back to the planning and zoning issue, the reason that I feel like at least it needs to be studied is 2 or 3 things that become quite glaring. If you have as many as 2 people missing on an important decision, you really have to make these decisions are really important. In other words, as we grow, in every meeting, we seem to see that increase of focus on what we're doing in planning and zoning. And that's one reason. I don't like to see the small numbers, and that does happen.
So Ed, maybe
Yeah.
we need to,
And
my response to that would be this. Maybe we need to work on our message to the B and Z commissioners that your attendance is important and hold them accountable. This needs to be a priority and make sure that we get the attendance that is appropriate.
Yeah.
So if
There's
the
a-
attendance is the issue, then I think that that needs to be addressed before we go after the number of people on the board.
Yeah. Well, that's just one part of it. And then two, if you have one person, I know one argument said, well, you know, if you have a split decision, which is a problem in our process, if you have four people, you have a split decision, it fails automatically.
Well, then that's
And-
appealable to us though.
Yeah, things like that. But so I was basically looking at number one, trying to make sure that we have a positive group of minds at that table on these issues. The other one is, and you're right, if we didn't have any kind of a problem with that member or that attendance thing, then 5 is a good number. 5 is a solid number. There's no problem with that. I know. So another problem is that I see, the other issue that we have is we have some pretty good candidates for those positions now, which is a real blessing. Just sending those over the years, it's been sometimes hard to fill those positions. Generally speaking, we'll get one applicant. That person's, no matter what, we don't, this body doesn't have much to deliberate on, in filling those. So it's nice to have that interest at this point.
And
But
that's
I'm
my,
not going to go away winner or loser on this. I just want to make sure that,
Well, there's another option that we could at least consider, maybe talk about, is you could also have 2 alternates.
yeah,
So that if somebody can't make a meeting, they can notify Cindy, and she can call one of the alternates. And they could come in and listen to the hearing and make an actual
You know,
vote.
that's not such a bad idea, Mr. Chairman, in my opinion. It
Is
just
that
make it
possible
tough,
legally?
but-
I don't know if it's legal or not as far as code.
Well, I don't think we're restricted in that regard.
I would want to make sure that that's a
We
legal
have
process.
alternates, IAC, some of those committees, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
People that can't vote, but they can be there. If they don't have the quorum, then they can fill in and vote.
We do at IEC? I
It
don't
is
know on
another
planning and
option
zoning.
to resolve that concern that I had. So maybe if we go to the P and Z with those thoughts as a deliberation, maybe something better, some solution that maybe is slightly better could come out of that.
My only concern is the consistency factor.
Beg pardon?
You better come to the mic, Cinda.
My only concern would be the consistency factor,
Mhm.
and that we're making consistent decisions.
Mhm.
The people apply knowing, how the ordinance is being interpreted and,
My concern too, Cindy, is it gives the original 5 members an easy out if they don't want to make a meeting.
That was my,
just call me at 9:00 in the morning, and
Yeah.
that would be my next.
But if someone is honest and, actually has coronavirus or is ill or something, then that's,
death and family. I mean, we haven't had that big of an attendance issue. I mean, I gave you the numbers. The one person that had the most absences, I'm going to talk to them. And I mean, they're the one that had the death, and
Well, there are
Those are things you just
legitimate
can't-
reasons that people
Yeah.
have to miss.
right.
And, maybe an alternate program wouldn't be a horrible, bad thing to be involved in.
I would ask the legalities of that, if that's even, something that's possible. But I would worry that those alternates were not as committed and not show up for training and not show up for the other things that, the board does as a whole. That would
mean,
be
they
my
would just be-
concern, but
Maybe a seat warmer because they don't have the experience, the practice, and
And I guess my thought, and it kind of echoes Ed, is that this is a moment in time where we have some really qualified applicants. And it's really going to be a tough decision on, who
It is.
completes those skill sets that we look for. Because there's really 3 good qualified applicants.
one of them had applied before and wasn't chosen.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
The other issue that I
Um,
could see is if you had alternates and you did have a vacancy, those alternates would automatically move into that position.
That would be part of
We
the
would not
process. I
have
think,
any,
yeah.
any interviews or we wouldn't even go out for the job.
You know, one of the things that would solve, Mr. Chairman, is the deal that when you walk into that P and Z, most people do walk into it pretty cold. You don't really have much background. And if you had an alternate program that was designed to bring people along in that process, they would accept that as with those conditions, you know, that this, you know.
Would they be required to attend meetings and just sit
I
here?
don't necessarily
But I-
think that's the case,
But I
but
think
they
it's
would
that
get
they
the
would have
packet.
to have a packet mailed to them, just like
Yeah.
your regular members.
And why not just add 2 more? I mean, at that
Yeah,
time.
if you're gonna go to that
If you're
much
gonna go to
work,
that much, you could just may as well add 2 more.
and they don't want, the full group doesn't want that.
I think we table this for now. I know that Neil wants to weigh in on this. And I think that that's appropriate. He's coming on too and has that background. So I think he deserves the opportunity to have this conversation also. I think we table this to a future time in January.
Want to make that a motion?
I move that we table the decision on the planning and zoning membership until a January date. Whatever's available.
Hmm.
And then that, not part of my motion, but further conversation. I think that then we can actually have more conversation with the current board, with the community at large, and get a better feel for, what people's expectations really are. And then also to discuss how we are going to address, attendance issues with the current board. So,
Well, and a lot of that's already in our ordinance, that if you miss 2 in a row, you're out. But people have illnesses, they have, deaths in the family. There's lots of reasons why you can miss.
and it
Cinda, didn't at one time, maybe it's not P and Z I'm trying to think of, but you could have an alternate yourself if you couldn't make it. A
no,
proxy. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. No.
I don't think so.
Okay, we got a
Maybe the
motion. Do I have a
ordinance-
second? I'll second that motion. I know that kind of leaves you out in the cold, and we don't mean to do it that way, but I think this is a pretty important decision down the road. And hopefully, these members will take their job seriously and attend and be fruitful and
Yeah.
read the points and be involved.
I don't think that leaves you out because we've certainly
Okay.
heard your concerns.
I think Cinda's suggestion early on is going to the P and Z for that discussion really does further that discussion. And I know that we've already got a second, and I'm not going to endorse that opinion. I think that the ideal thing would be to go to the planning and zoning for a more in-depth discussion of this. And, maybe take into consideration Mr. Elt's, or Hasbrook's suggestion of possible alternates and stuff like that. I think that this tabling it essentially takes it, I'm not going to be there for that discussion, so I'm out of it. And I wanted to be there for it. I wanted to.
Well, and I think Cinda's kind of already talked to them. They're not really for expanding, but you might talk to them about, I think we need to talk to legal too, if we can actually have an alternate
And
to fill in for planning and zoning. I'm not sure we can. So we'll go ahead. We got a motion and a second to table this until sometime in January for further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna go right on down. Our next agenda item, this is an action item to approve the annual street and road. Jeff, come on up to the mic. Good morning.
Morning.
Get a little break this weekend?
Oh, if you can call it a break, there's no such thing. not plowing snow, I'm doing something around the house.
Yes, it never ends. So you've gone through this road report and you're all happy and good with it?
Yep, Doug got us started with all the main numbers and then I filled in all my stuff. That's what we got.
Everybody get a chance to look at it? If there's no concerns or questions?
1 second.
Sure.
So definitely looking at, I have no problems with any of it, but the future projects down at the bottom. You've identified 3 projects. How does this blend, if you will, with the road development agreements that we're gonna be discussing also? I mean, that document was so huge and intense and, you know, the tears and everything else, I'm counting on you. But does this, I want to make sure these two things are blended together as far as what your future,
These aren't locked in place. This is just some projects. I mean, if you go back over the last 6 years, I had Spring Valley Road on my list for 6 years before it actually came off of here. These are projects that
These
I
are
have in mind to
placeholders.
work on. They're not necessarily, a lot of this is gonna depend on what the transportation plan throws at us for priorities, what we put in there.
okay.
Basically, I had to come up with a number of $4,490,000 and some odd cents there. So my numbers equal 0.
Jeff, can you tell me where Hereford Road is?
Backside of Wagon Wheel, the main road that accesses the Boulder Creek.
Oh,
That's the one that kind of goes down on the far west side of Wagon Wheel and it kind of skirts the water edge out through there.
and then Cascade Drive is up on,
Cascade is the one halfway between Spring Valley and Hereford that runs north-south. Lake Trail runs from Spring Valley to Cascade.
A lot of this is in that Donley community out Wagon Wheel.
Yeah.
and then we're doing Lakeshore Drive this year.
No, that's probably 2026, I think.
So then where's this Lake Trail? Same area
No, Lake Trail is in Wagon Wheel.
in Wagon Wheel?
Yeah, we did Spring Valley last year and Lake Trail and Hereford and Cascade and you know, that's where the state parks is directing everybody to take their boats to go to but they won't pitch anything to help.
I understand what you're doing with this and just making these placeholders, but as we communicate with the community, they want to know what's upcoming for the next few years.
Yeah,
So hopefully
that'll be in our transportation plan.
for transportation.
And these will be in the transportation plan, and we've just got to prioritize.
When do we get that plan, do you know?
What's that?
The transportation plan, they said when they'll be done?
LTAC has approved it. Cody has sent us the cost difference between the 30,000. I think we're up around 45 or 48 for them to do the public meetings and do these other things. You guys were CC'd on that, I believe.
Were we? Okay.
We've already
not-
approved to go up to the 50, so
Yeah,
we're
we
good
approved
as far as
that
budget.
part.
Yeah, I think he's at
Yes.
47 something or 48 somewhere in there.
So
So
I
you should-
think, this is okay to approve this today, but when we get that transportation plan, we need to go back and maybe reprioritize some of that.
Yep,
To
Yeah.
look where we're gonna spend our money.
yep.
And I just want to make sure that we are focused to where the road development agreements are also focused.
Right.
So that there's some kind of a collaboration between those two documents that makes
Yeah.
sense for a future planning.
Yeah. And this here's, it's future planning, but it's not set in stone planning.
These are placeholders.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, East Roseberry, that's a major collector. I think we can probably figure out how to get a grant on that somehow or another. And that 690,000 from what my figures are, that's half of it.
I was going to
not
say,
even
how
half.
far is that out?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna depend on what we get for funding the next few years.
Okay, so everybody's had a chance to look at it. I'd entertain a motion to approve this before it's sent off.
I would move to approve the annual street report to the Idaho Transportation Department.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Also,
that-
Jeff, do you have to call out at all? I know that Juan's working on that grant with you for West Mountain culverts. Do you have to call that out anywhere? Are you reporting that? I guess
No,
I
I have no idea what the cost even is. Mackenzie's working on it with me. Yeah, Juan's got us all the information and we got the pre-application in. And now we're working on the main part, but you can't even see these culverts over there right now. So it's really hard to go over there and go, oh, it's a 48-inch culvert. We're gonna upsize it to a 56 or whatever, so.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay,
Anything else you need to report?
don't think so.
Everything's running okay?
Yeah, just typical breakdowns. Plowing
Throw me
snow.
a
People
phone
don't
call,
realize
but-
that plowing snow's the hardest thing on equipment
You can sit there.
can ever be imagined.
You owe me a phone call, but it's okay because my idea changed.
Will you phone call?
You said I'm interviewing, I'll call you right back. And that was like 5 days
Oh.
ago.
Sorry. You want me to call you back right now?
No, I don't.
Oops, sorry, right up above mine.
And Jeff, I will submit this electronically
Okay,
to ITD.
perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good day. Get some rest.
I got a couple more things I got to do.
I'm hoping you're sitting through the transportation department yet.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Trying to sneeze. Excuse me. Our next agenda item is discussion decision on health comp plan grants. Does anybody know who's in charge of this one?
I've got it. And we probably should have Cindy in here on this one. So let me just run and get her. Hey Lori, will you ask Cindy to come in?
So if I remember right, this is from Blue Cross and this was a grant that they help counties redo their comp plan.
Correct.
And it deals a lot with more physical exercise kind of stuff, trails, bikes
Well,
is included in the comp plan, correct?
they focus on health as far as what they're doing. They are actually doing Cascades right now. So
Oh, really?
they're in this area and actually, participating with other governmental agencies right now. And so it might be a good time to have them come in and do it. Cindy and I were talking about our comp plan and is it time to update it? I know that the city of Cascade got $30,000. So what would that money get us? Or is it time to look at the rest of it? And I want her input.
I know one time we looked at it, hired somebody to come in and help us update that, and it was a pretty expensive deal. Cindy, come on up to the mic, please. You give us kind of a rundown update on this health comprehensive plan grant.
That's Sherry.
That's me.
Huh?
She needs your
So
help.
we were at the Idaho Association of Counties meeting, and this was, no, it was probably the housing meeting. And they were discussing how they are doing comp plans throughout the state of Idaho, with a major focus on making sure that health is identified, outdoor walking paths, that type of thing. Cindy and I talked at that time about the fact that ours has a component for the trail network already. And Cindy and I talked about, well, maybe they could come in and just do an audit. So I have reached out to them, but without consensus, I don't want to reach out to them. I don't want to write a grant and say, can you come in and maybe audit our comp plan? Can you make, some recommendations? We don't have to start from scratch. I think we have a great comp plan, but maybe could there be some improvements in certain areas? What would they recommend that we look at and change?
So my feeling is if they would come in and do an audit, I think that's awesome. More eyes to look at it, the more we'll find what we missed.
Yeah, for those health concerns. I mean,
But I
we have
don't
the
want to,
pathways, we have hospitals in there and things like that, but they might be able to do an audit and recommend some other changes.
if they'll do that. Do you know, is there a match to this grant?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to actually reach
Okay.
out to them and.
Then I think
So
what we
the
should do is
grant
give
portal
you
is-
the authority to, you and Cinda to explore this
Okay.
and see where it goes.
There is, the grant is open at this moment in time, so we could go out and actually have a conversation about what they would be willing to do and what the cost would be to do that.
Yeah, I haven't seen any documentation on it. It was one of your October meetings, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was the housing.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead then and make a motion that we authorize the exploration with Blue Cross to look at our comp plan for any updates.
And I will second that.
And I'm assuming part of that will be they'll come in here and tell us kind of what they're gonna do and give us the results at the end.
I would hope that they would give it to the Planning and Zoning Commission since we're reviewing the comp plan now,
Good. That's
and that we
even
can
better.
incorporate any of those changes into that document at this time.
Okay, great.
Can you, like further discussion, kind of help me with this a little bit? This is Blue Cross.
It's actually Blue Cross Foundation.
So Blue Cross Foundation is focused on health.
Mhm.
And so how do we correlate that into the planning process or comp plan process?
Like pathways, we incorporated all the Valley County pathway recommendations into the comprehensive plan and then made them ordinances.
Well-
Pathways are a health,
And I think there's more to it than just
So,
walking. I think there's also like fit and fall for seniors. What are you doing for the, the super seniors? What kind of exercise opportunities do they
we
have?
have hospitals. do we
Things
have
like that.
dentists?
I mean, there's a whole gamut of stuff they could look at.
Yeah.
so do we
Open space.
do we address that as one of our, 13 elements of the comp plan? Is that health one of the major?
It's, I don't believe it's a headline, it's
Right,
just
didn't want-
incorporated within it, and that's why they would go through each chapter and do the audit.
So and possibly even put a chapter 14.
I think we're gonna have to have input from them on, exactly what it looks like.
Right.
I do know they're doing the Cascade plan right now. So, for the first time ever, Cascade City is actually hired someone to do the comp plan. And, Blue Cross is doing it, the same group's doing theirs.
The
So
Blue
they're act-
Cross Foundation is
Yes.
doing it.
We looked at that
They're
years
active.
ago. It was a couple $100,000, if I remember right, to have somebody come in and go through our comp plan. Do all the public hearings, all that kind of stuff.
The comp plan
Very
is
expensive.
so much more involved than just the health aspect. So is that the proper place to have a comp plan reviewed?
Well, they're just gonna do an audit and pull out the things that address health issues and promote health things, or we might have a deficit someplace that we don't know about, that we can incorporate into those existing chapters with new objectives and tactics and guidelines and goals. Yeah, we
Maybe
want
we-
to be the number one
Yeah.
health county in the state of Idaho still.
Well, it seems like a very nice thing, and I'm just kind of trying to wrap my mind up around what it just means. And then too, for the rest of the comp plan, in other words, if it's a total comp plan review or just as it,
Well, I think what we're approving, they will do both. It's what do we want them to do? And so I think that we just need to give them direction. Right now, we would, first of all, let's just talk to them. What would be your proposal? So that we kind of know what the costs are. I think Cascade's spending $100,000 on theirs. And then ask them, will you do an audit? Because I don't have any idea until we actually talk to them and work through it.
What I would visualize they would do is read the comprehensive plan as it stands, identify those areas, where we promote health activities, and then recommend some new ones that maybe we haven't thought of in the past. The whole dark sky ordinance thing is a health benefit.
Yeah, I think that there's things there that we don't even think about being a health benefit. You know, what are some of those open space requirements? What are some of the things that other communities are doing in order to promote a healthy environment?
Parks, you know,
Yeah,
what do we need?
what do we need?
That's, so they'll read what we have and then make recommended changes. Is what an audit would
Sounds
be.
like, I mean, it sounds like a great idea, you know,
Well, let's explore it, at least find out.
yeah.
We don't know till we talk to them. So we got a motion on the floor with a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Gonna send that to the grant writer, or how's that gonna work out?
Let me do a little more
Okay.
exploration and then I'll get together with them or whatever.
Floodplains are a health thing. I mean, there's so many health things.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of aspects of the health thing. It's environmentally, I mean, everything we do
Smoke,
should be, you know, addressing that sort of thing, or at least considering it, absolutely. But that's where it's, you know. Yeah.
okay,
you might think of some things they don't think of.
Perfect. It's a good time to do it while we're already looking at it.
thank you. Okay, Brian, we got about 12 minutes and then you're up, so we're gonna take a 10-minute break and we'll start right at 10.
I'll be here.
Okay. Doug,
let's
sorry,
wait.
man.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. That was all muted. Do you want to just?
Let's just wait.
Somebody texted her at 9:52, said they had car problems or something.
Next in line on the agenda, as soon as Doug gets us turned on, we'll.
I got your,
Back on, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're at our 10
would
o'clock
have been throwing something
agenda
out.
item. This is not an action item. This is a discussion with ITD. So at this time, if I would, gotta put a mic in front of you guys so we can hear you.
Oh, do you want me to put mine out? And I asked these guys to come and attend. I thought it was just time to have a conversation about what's going on and what's happening along the corridor and what we're doing, what you're doing, and time for a general conversation.
Sounds good.
And I haven't seen Vince to
kinda
harass
took
him.
what you asked about, Commissioner, and added a little to it.
Perfect,
A few other things I thought you might be interested in.
perfect. We can update you on what we've got going on, so.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So at this time, if it's all right, I would like to have you guys introduce yourself for the record and try and speak towards the mic if you can.
There's also one above you, so we've got,
Very
now
good.
you're double
So
mic.
whoever wants to go first, can go first.
I'll start. Alex Deduk. I am the project manager for Smiths Ferry Construction, so that's what I'll be discussing today.
Good.
I'm Brian Inwards. I'm the foreman for Highway 55 from Donley to Horseshoe Bend.
And my name's Vincent Trimboli, and I'm with ITD District 3, our Southwestern Idaho office is Planning and Development Services. So I've kind of put together a little bit of just kind of an agenda based off the request from Commissioner Maupin as to what she would like to get some updates on. And I added a few things I thought would be of interest to you today. So first, I think Brian will give you a quick update on where we're at with winter road maintenance, namely the blue salt. I think you're going to like what you hear. Brian and his team have been doing a tremendous job. We're 200% above in our snowpack right now, and the roads have been great all winter. So he'll give you an update there, and we're looking great. Smiths Ferry is the road is designed and fully built out, and Alex will give you an update there, and then I'll take some time to go through kind of a list of what I consider to be planning projects and short and long term ideas and thoughts and things that we're working on as a district. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian and let him talk about the blue salt.
So I have a presentation we did for our state foreman's meeting in August for what we did last year with it. And I'm not gonna go over it page by page, but it kind of gives you a rundown of what we found out with it, how well it works. We switched to this blue salt, it's called Ice Kicker. We started January of last year. And at the end of the season, we had used 40% less than we had used of white salt before. And even with the additional cost of this stuff, we wound up saving almost $50,000. It's working at colder temperatures. We're using almost exactly half of the rate we used to put out the white salt and getting the same results. So better for the environment. Just for the half. It's less corrosive. So we're using less, plus it's less corrosive. It's better for everything all the way around.
Brian, where do you get this stuff from? Salt Lake?
It's out of Salt Lake. It's just a little outfit that Kyle Brown, he's kind of a one-man operation. He buys it, he has it. It's his proprietary stuff he puts in it. He won't, nobody knows. But he's really good to work with. He's been really part of our problem with our white salt was delivery, getting it delivered. We're having issues, so he's been really good on getting our deliveries up here. So we started out the winter with about 2,600 tons of it.
For just Cascade or?
For just Cascade.
Wow.
So we use it in Cascade and Banks right now. So it's everything from Horseshoe Bend to Patty Flat is being treated with this stuff.
What are they treating north of Patty Flat?
That is the New Meadows foreman area. It's broken into different foreman areas. So that's our turnaround spot. At this point, that's just our test corridor.
But they're not using the blue in New Meadows then?
No.
Is that why the Highway 55 south of McCall during this last storm is fairly warm, up about 30, right at freezing. It was like driving through a stream.
Oh, yeah?
And then you get down below Donnelly, it turns into kind of a more normal road.
I'm not sure.
I mean,
They,
so they're still using mag chloride though?
mostly just white salt. They
White
use
salt.
a little bit of mag. They spray it right on the salt, but they
Yeah.
don't use a lot of mag.
So if this has been proven to be a good idea, why are they not using it? They're salting their roads too.
It's you have to have total buy-in from a crew to cut. Trying to convince some of the older guys that you need to cut your rates down to get the same result is hard. So we tried it in just Cascade last year. Now it's Cascade, Banks, Weezer, and New Plymouth. So we've got 4 sheds now trying it.
Huh.
You know, we got to prove that it's going to work in all different situations.
And I would say from district-wide perspective, this is essentially a pilot. I think we're seeing really good results, and I think to your question, Commissioner, I think it's something that we'll probably take a really hard look at. You're hearing the numbers that Brian's bringing to the table right now. And, you know, we have other areas I think that could really benefit from this, and potentially north of Patty Flats, you know, that's a different area. It's not Brian's area, but that's the New Meadows shed and Council. And I think we could expand it there too. But I think we have to look at the numbers as a district and make that decision. And I don't know as much about it as Brian, so I don't want to talk too far out of turn. But I mean, certainly just from, you know, talking to, you know, the district engineer and the operations folks, I think, you know, this is what you would consider to be a pilot, right, Brian? I mean, to Brian's point, I mean,
It's really good to know where the
Yeah.
break is because, you know, I drive it
Right.
2 to 3 times a week. So now I can actually see the difference between the two products now that I know where it breaks. I'll tell you the white stuff, when it goes dry, it is like a dust storm.
Right. And we've noticed we don't have that issue.
Don't have that issue. I've noticed that on
And
the
part of
southern.
it's because we're not putting as much out, and I think the other chemicals he has in it seem to help
Oh.
with that.
That's a good question, Brian. I mean, that's good, interesting to me that we're putting stuff on the roads that is proprietary information chemically.
He-
I-
the-
You know,
It's the state wouldn't buy it if it's anything that's going to be harmful.
but then, so the state must know what's in it.
I would assume they can. I do not know.
This is kind of
That's-
interesting.
We've done, our mechanic did a test with white salt, blue salt, with a chunk of steel, just, you know, like our plows. Stuck one piece in each cup. One had white salt, one had blue salt. Pulled them out in 2 weeks and let them sit took pictures and then let them sit in the air, and the reduction in the corrosiveness is visual. I mean, you can see it. You don't have to do a test on it.
Yeah, but
See
that
it
doesn't
as
take into
corrosive.
account anything else that may be going into the environment.
I'm sure that's beyond my.
I think we can, that's something we can look further into.
Yeah, anyway.
They're
it's a
very
good-
aware
good
of
question.
the trees along Highway 55.
Oh, yeah.
Which we're working with the Forest Service on that, and it's not totally salt that's killing them. There's drought conditions.
Well, everything has an effect, but this pushed
Everything
it
has
over
an
the
effect.
edge. You know,
And if it was just the salt, it'd be killing everything along there, and it's just random trees here and there. So just the fact that we're putting out less is going to help with that. If it's less corrosive to the vehicles, I mean, I got to maintain my vehicles just like everybody else. So I see the same rust problems as everybody else does.
it's been pretty bad.
But we've also gotten to the point where people expect the roads to be bare. And I'm sure you hear it from anything off the highway is you can see where it's been tracked off the highway, and the lanes coming off the highway are bare and the lanes going on to the highway are snow floor. So it's,
Well, that's true, but
It's-
you
it's
live
a-
in snow country, so we have to have some element of that.
right.
But Brian, I gotta be honest with you, man, I grew up in the era when they didn't use salt on the highway. It was sand.
Yeah.
And they only did the corners. The straight sections were like bowling alley just.
Yeah.
And anything is an improvement from those days, I can tell you that.
I started for the state almost 25 years ago, and we used a 10-to-1 mix. So it was mostly just, the salt was just to keep the sand from clumping.
Freezing, yeah.
And freezing together.
And we groomed snow floor everywhere I worked, so the level of service we keep it now, the public expects it, which you can see how they drive. I'd
Well,
almost rather have the snow floor.
Yep. I miss
Slows
those
everybody
days.
down.
Yeah,
Definitely slows everybody down.
we can't sacrifice the environment for it. You know what I mean? You have
oh
to
yeah, no,
conduct some,
exactly.
you know.
And I can't speak for Saltworks themselves. Saltworks is that outfit that sells it.
Mhm.
Knowing the guy that owns it, and he's very aware of the environment,
Right.
environmental impact on all of it. So we can check into it more. I'm sure he'd be willing
Well,
to.
thank you. We've been talking
we
about
do
this for a
pretty-
couple years, and this was a request, and I'm really happy to hear that you guys are doing some pilot
Making
work
some
with it.
changes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And in
figure it out.
positive direction, yeah.
Are
And
you
I-
guys still using Machloride then at all?
We use very little mag chloride. It has its uses, but I've never been a huge fan of it because the window that it works well is so small. It doesn't work too cold. You put too much down, it creates more problems. It draws moisture to it. It can create icy corners.
Yeah.
And as soon as we get snow, we have icy corners until it quits freezing at night. So we're out treating until it warms up. We run 2 12-hour shifts all winter long.
So I've got an interesting little kind of caveat to this whole thing about slick roads. I'm assuming we do this all through the state of Idaho. So I travel from Lewiston to McCall on the weekend after Thanksgiving on Sunday. We hit a storm out of Lewiston. We'd had a high pressure, just came in, hit a storm out of Lewiston. We saw 7 vehicles off of the road, 3 of them on their top. Okay, this was right during the storm. Watched a guy right in front of me did a 180 and headed back up Whitebird Hill. You know, so we had a lot. It was a slick condition. And okay, when you look at statistics on that, is that considered the salt, you may be putting salt on, but it wasn't working there.
Well, in a
Right?
storm,
So when you get into the slick and expectations and so,
the storms we get come in, and even up there, they come in. There's a point to where
right,
you can dump the whole truckload of salt out in a mile, and you're not going to keep
Right.
the road bare.
so,
Some of it falls on almost all of it falls on driver responsibility.
right.
People do not want to slow down.
That gets back to the point of this, we expect, non-slick roads and that's
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Except that even with that, you can't guarantee those,
Yeah, and
and so it's,
You know this new product, what does it go down to? Is it down to 20? Is it down to?
Blue salt.
Rise. When Watkins burned down last year, it was February?
Mhm.
So it was 5 below when we closed the highway. And the fire department sprayed water from 3:30 in the morning until like 8:30, 9 o'clock. They finally pulled the hoses off. They'd been shooting catty corner across and at that point it was 0. There was between 3 and 4 inches of solid ice in the highway.
oh,
We spread this stuff down, let it sit for 15 minutes, took the grader and scraped half of it off, treated it again, and in 30 minutes we had standing water on the
Wow,
highway. So it works at a lot colder temperatures.
wow, that's impressive.
if I can, Mr. Chairman, I want to just add a little bit to what you said, Commissioner Allen. I agree. I think people now see these clear roads in the winter and they think it's a license to just drive. And we understand this. So we've changed our education to really reflect that, look, we understand the roads are clear in the winter or more clear than they've ever been. We measure the amount of time the roads are free of snow and ice during the storm. And our goal is 74%. And we're a lot of times well above that. But there are other times when, well, for whatever reason, we're a little behind or
Just
bad
severity.
shifts, severity of the weather. We can't quit. We're not, whatever, and we're behind. So we're telling people at all times, you need to be prepared to drive in Idaho. And we have an Idaho Ready campaign that we have had for several years now. And we put that information out across the state, and you've probably seen it. I mean, we're constantly educating drivers through our SHIFT campaign as well, our Idaho Office of Highway Safety campaign, which talks about a lot of the other, distracted driving. But they also help us quite a bit with getting the winter driving message out there too. So we'll continue to educate people, but yeah, it becomes more difficult because you're kind of your own worst enemy because these guys are doing such a great job. They're, especially here now with new materials. But in the same token, we need to remind people that they are driving, this is Idaho, and they will encounter times when, on the top of Whitebird Hill, when a storm comes, we may not be there for a few minutes and snow gathers quickly on that road. And I've been on that road before in the eye of a storm, and that can turn slick. So people have to always be ready for, bad weather.
Have a cup of coffee in Lewiston.
Yeah, or stop in Grangeville and, and get a cup of coffee. There's a great cafe up on the hill there.
Well, I appreciate, Vince, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's just that, we are training people, it seems like, to not be too worried about winter conditions.
I
When
just
we-
chuckle on Facebook. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You got half the population slow down, the other half the population speed up. It's like, just stay home. If you don't know how to drive, stay home.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I grew up learning how to drive in Montana on bad roads, and basically it was like we used to maintain. In fact, if you drive over US 12 and drop down from Lolo Pass, and the moment you leave Montana or leave Idaho and head into Montana, there's a noticeable difference. They still maintain a snow floor there, so a lot of us are used to driving in those conditions, and things have changed. So we still have to educate our younger drivers and then a lot of our newer drivers here in the state of Idaho about, how to drive when the weather turns bad and the roads aren't fair.
Well, I appreciate particularly that you've been responsive to the feedback that I'm sure you're getting on the ice. It's a deleterious effects,
Right.
vehicles particularly, and the roads,
Well, and we certainly get the comments about the corrosion and what Brian and his team are doing and what the guys in Weiser and New Plymouth are doing is we're trying to find ways. I mean, we've made that pledge. We've made that pledge to all the constituents across the state, to the legislature, that we want to continue to maintain the roads the way we are, and we'll do everything we can as an organization to find better solutions, right? And so that's what this really is. It's an attempt to find a better solution. And based on what we're seeing now, it's working, and it could be something that we end up doing more and more of. But this guy is a one-guy operation, so we got to,
He's doing
But-
a great job. Put that on tape. You're doing a great job.
But it's that we'll always continue to find better ways to do our jobs and do our work.
Since I want to hear so much about planning, I want to hear from Alex.
Yeah.
So, you actually
Speaking
started
of
this
finding better
meeting-
ways to do your job, here's a guy right here that's always finding that.
Miss Ferry is wonderful.
Yeah.
I was shocked to see an avalanche sign when I went down there, without hearing anything about an avalanche zone being created in our.
I'll get to that. I do. So I thought about how I would start this off, and we just recently had a first responders meeting just to kind of bring them up to speed as far as where we're at in construction and what we expect over this winter and into next year. And I started that presentation off by driving through the project on Google Street View, because that has not been updated to what it currently is right now. Because after 2 years of construction, you might forget, although people who have been driving a lot longer than myself probably don't, but that it really reminds you of how narrow that corridor was, how little shoulder that we had, how the hillside, the mountain really felt like it overhung in certain sections, and it was a steep drop off with no protection down to the river. And driving through it really for the first time today, not planning on stopping at the project. You really felt a lot safer, and I'm sure all of you who have driven through it feel that now with, full 12-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders, plenty of ditch on the mountainside to collect any, errant rocks. We don't expect anything big, but again, we live in Idaho, so there will be things that come down. And then the entire stretch of that road now has either a concrete barrier, metal guardrail, or large pullout. So it's a much safer road than it was when we started. And as far as the road construction itself, the project that we originally set out to build, it is completely finished. The only thing that we have left to work on is repair or finish the mitigation from the event, the landslide that happened in November of last year. Once that happened, we closed the road out of safety for, I think it was 18 days. It was a really long time. We eventually built a temporary containment system to open it up during the winter. And then all winter long, we worked with our geotechnical experts, and we designed the final fix. And that's what they spent all summer working on. So all of those loads of material heading up north to OK Gravel, that was them excavating out and laying it back at a angle that is much safer. That being said, there's still some, we've been calling it 4-season slope stabilization. So some rock and soil anchoring. We don't want to have any erosion events or anything like that. The soil, it's not that competent rock that you see everywhere else. So one anchor into the rock isn't going to suffice. We really need to net that down and contain a lot more of the soil. So that will start back up or continue once the snow starts melting up there. And then we did realize that once the slope that we decided upon, it provides the terrain for an avalanche. But I know enough about avalanches to be dangerous. I am not an expert by any means, but usually for an avalanche, you need 3 things. You need the terrain, which we have, it's the right angle. And then more importantly, you need the snowpack. And we don't have a lot of history for that exact location, but we do have a lot of history in other areas. And we can interpolate from that. And we don't think we have a large avalanche problem because of that snowpack. But there's the potential for it. So out of pure preparedness, we've placed those signs there just to make sure that people are aware and they don't stop. They don't get out of their cars. But we really don't expect it. The danger is very on a scale from very high to very low. We're listing it at very low. But again, we just want to be prepared. So we've worked with Brian's crew to make sure that they're aware that they have the training and the equipment to safely work in that area, but we really don't expect it. If anything, I've been told Brian is the outside of our avalanche team that works Highway 21. That guy's the most experienced because he's cleaning them up, and he's told me it's really nothing to worry about. So.
You just, is that on record?
So I have Highway 21 as one of my highways too. So I have the avalanche area.
You do have it.
I've worked on 80-foot piles of snow and just about anything you can imagine. So I don't see getting something that scale here. But the possibilities there to have something.
So just the section that moved previously.
It's just that section that actually closed the road in November of last year. It's about 600 feet long, and it's only like 400 feet high. Where when you go to Highway 21, and I had the opportunity to actually fly in a helicopter as they were doing some maintenance up there, and then it really clicked then of the how different we're comparing apples and oranges here because you have 3,000 feet of elevation difference, and then it's already at 8,000 feet to begin with. And so you're getting more snow, colder snow. It's not like melting and gathering strength. And
Those
then
are chutes.
those are, yeah, this is
different.
very different.
However, this is also our major economy driver when
Yes.
that road closes.
Yes.
And so that's, what is the long-term solution to this issue? Or is this a one winter issue?
So we are, we're currently working with avalanche mitigation experts right now. So we're developing a plan. We're still in the analysis stage of like what does that snowpack look like? What kind of fencing would we need to properly mitigate it? And then we're gonna go into, once we develop that plan and we accept that analysis, we'll start into the design stage. But again, you need three. The other thing is, the other leg of an avalanche triangle is a trigger. That would be a storm event to kind of collapse that weak layer and send any snow down. But we're not so convinced that we have that snowpack leg. But we're still going to I can't say what we're going to install, but we are going to install some kind of mitigation, and to hold back. But at the most, you may see snow maybe block a lane, but it'll take a plow 30 seconds to. It'll just blow right through it, and it won't
on
be much
record.
different than.
That
This is
whole
being
section-
recorded.
That whole section's where the bank shot comes up to Round Valley and the Cascade shot goes down to Smiths Ferry. So there's trucks going through there every half hour probably. They're making a lot of laps in there. They keep a pretty close eye on it.
And there's plenty of other, this is really, I'm on the design construction side. I don't spend much time in operations. But it really has been, this issue has opened my eyes. In fact, there are hundreds of avalanche paths all throughout Idaho. And a lot of them slide like road cuts. You just don't know about it because these guys come through and just push it out of the way. So, but we are in construction right now, so we do have the opportunity to place mitigation efforts where you may not be able to in other situations. So we're currently working with avalanche mitigation experts to analyze this area.
Most likely when you get it mitigated, the signs will probably go away.
Well, if we get it, unless if we mitigate it, and then we have a winter where we have problems, we're going to have problems in a lot of other areas.
Places, yeah.
Because if we have snowpack that's like 6-7 feet high, you're going to see closures in other areas, and you won't even notice Smiths Ferry because banks will be closing, and lots of areas between Smiths Ferry and banks will be closing, and so.
That road's closed traffic down to McCall more than once.
Smiths Ferry, yes, you're
Not
absolutely
necessarily
right.
for snow, but for the rocks.
For the rocks,
Slide
and,
area.
yeah.
You mean over the last few years? But that road's closed several times before we
Oh, yeah.
started this project, as
Yeah.
you all know, over the years. We've had
Rain on snow
numerous
events are
rock
worse.
slides that have come down, in the spring. Ever since I've worked at ITD and Brian.
Almost every year.
How
yeah.
many have you cleared in
The
25
mounds are
years?
constantly moving.
Yeah.
There's not
It's-
much we can do about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places along 55. If you stopped and looked up, you probably wouldn't drive it.
I know. You don't
Think
have your lunch down there on the
It would
barrel.
have been great to have that heads up, that this was gonna be put on our highway before you did it.
I heard that, duly noted. That's on me, so that's my, we probably should have turned some communication and made a call to you guys and let you know what we were doing there, but
Guys
it
might
was
put
a
up the
fluid
sign, we get
situation.
phone
We were
calls.
trying to, come up with the best solutions for how we mitigated this, and it's been a challenge, and I just want to, since we're here with Alex here, I want to give him some credit. It's just been a challenging project, and there's been a lot of, unfairly, I think, personally, since we're on the record, I'll just say it here. there's been some scrutiny on ITD. This was a difficult project, and we knew going into it, and I think we told you guys and everybody else that we talked to throughout this project that it was going to be difficult and we were going to have to change. We had you up there and we showed you what the conditions were like during the project, and they've done a tremendous job.
You better not remind me of that because you had me up there on that exact spot that slid the next day.
No, it was a couple weeks. But I guess my point is that they've done a tremendous job changing and, working through the project.
And I would agree with that.
What we have.
No, I trust me, I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
But yeah, we know 100% where you're coming from, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Sorry.
Well, and I think it's not only important for this project, but even some of your planning stuff that sometimes, in my 10 years in this job, we feel like we get left out of ITT decisions that you guys certainly have the accident history and you know where the problems are. It's a matter of funding to get to them, but I think it's important that you kind of include your stakeholders in on what you're thinking about, so that we don't feel like they don't listen to us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree, and I didn't smile because I'm taking what you're saying for granted. I smiled because I think that maybe takes us into the next part of our conversation.
Well, I tell you what, I drove that road
Yeah.
every day, 7 days a week for 27 years feeding cows in Horseshoe Bend. And I was through it when they built all the Silver Bridge, all this, the bypass there above banks, all that changed. We used to drive across the old bridge. I mean, I've seen a lot of improvements on that highway. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. It's kind of expensive, but you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, and I think we, from a planning perspective, and I've gotten to know Commissioner Maupin a little over the last few years through the Smiths Ferry project, and had a chance to work with Alex a lot on that. And it became evident that from a department standpoint at the time when I didn't work at the district, so I now work at the district. I used to work in the headquarters. That there was probably a need for some planning, and the district clearly knew it, and I think it's been something that's been on the planning, at the planning level, at least conceptually, some sort of a long-term corridor plan, let's just say north of Horseshoe Bend. And so we're making some changes on how we allocate planning dollars, and the goal is within the next either 24 or 25 to allocate some money to do a legitimate corridor plan through here, through 55 from Horseshoe Bend north. And right now I would terminate it probably in McCall, but maybe go all the way to New Meadows. Those details we still need to figure out. And I've talked to Commissioner Maupin, and I'll say this to all you guys, we want you guys involved in that. We want to invite you guys to really help us be the champions of that, along with, the community of Smiths Ferry, the mayor here in Cascade, and the folks in Donnelly, and everybody in McCall as well. And if we go through even into New Meadows, which kind of gets us in Adams County, obviously. But I think it's imperative that we all plan it together. We've had some really successful corridor planning efforts in the valley over the last few years. And because of the foresight of the planning and the way that they phased some of those plans, you're seeing those roads built now. You're seeing the State Highway 16 being built from 2026 to the interstate, that really big long extension, a brand new freeway. And you're going to see US 2026 at least 4 lanes in each direction, within the next 3 years from Caldwell all the way to Eagle Road. And we're doing some widening of State Highway 44, at least through Canada Road, from Eagle to Canada Road, from the city of Eagle. So from where 55 comes down into Eagle to the west. A lot of that has to do with planning. And so we're doing some planning north on State Highway 16 into Emmett. We're going to do some that start. In fact, that we just bid that out, and We've got a consultant on board to do that. We're going to get a consultant on board the next few months to do State Highway 44 East, and our next priority is State Highway 55 North. So, we're going to work to see if we can get that into our program this coming update. And so we really want to work with all of you on that. And what does that look like? I mean, Alex and I were talking about it in the car driving up here, and I was explaining to him what the thoughts are, but it could be a lot of things. Can we build a 5-lane road from Horseshoe Bend all the way to McCall? No.
I don't want you to.
And I don't think you do, right? But where can we put in truck lanes, passing lanes? We do have a passing lane project. We've submitted it to our strategic initiatives fund for funding in 2030. Now that's a ways off. We're hoping it'll get accepted. It didn't last year. We think it has a better chance to compete this year. But
Where's that passing lane at?
it would be just north of Round Valley. It'd be both directions, about a half mile, just north of where it comes out of Round Valley. We're going to work on, along with the Rainbow Bridge project, which is slated right now for 2029. We're also going to work on fixing the pavement between wherever Rainbow Bridge comes out and into Round Valley as well. So I'm sure you've all noticed the nice work they did on the pavement south of here, and we want to kind of complete that because Alex's project has repaved and done a really nice job.
So Vincent, are they going to straighten some of that road out along Goose Creek? Along Round Valley Creek?
I would say right now we're looking at the pavement, but when we do work like that, I think we have the ability. It's a project that right now is just something I think Caleb has said. Let's look into seeing what we can do to really complete that section, right? So I don't know what that would look like, but I think certainly we could do some work to straighten some turns. But we're also, we've done some work recently with straightening roads in that mountainous section, and so we're a little cautious right now in terms of what we may or may not do going forward. But along the corridor, where can we put in, what are intersections we can identify and find warrants for in terms of left-hand turn lanes? And so what are those right turn lanes, left turn lanes? Where can we put in those potential little things that increase mobility and more importantly for all of us, increase safety, right?
So on
keep people from making those unsafe maneuvers, which we see more and more of on this highway.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. And we're killing people now. So, it's time to
Yeah.
do something.
And
So on the passing lane, just coming out, we both own property that's right there.
Mhm.
I don't know, why is it gonna take till 2030 to try and get something? You could,
because we program on a 7-year basis, and so when we get a project in the program, it's not to say that we can't advance a project, but you got to get it in the program first. And so once we get it in the program, then we can look at potentially advancing it. I just get nervous talking about advancing it because I don't want you to walk away and say, well, we talked to Vince today and they're going to start it next week.
Right.
So
and there should be very little land allocation there that you guys have to plan for. So, hopefully that will bump it up a
in
bit,
terms of
but
the right of way, yeah.
that is a huge need coming out of that valley. I can't believe
Right.
how stupid people are. It's like pent up emotion all of a sudden.
Right.
Like,
They just
slow
go
down.
crazy, right?
It's crazy.
And that's kind of why we've identified that spot. And what that could really turn out to be is potentially a pillar for a plan, like a corridor plan. Like and what we'd want to do with this corridor plan is look at what the needs are. We're going to look at access control. We're going to look at right of way. We're going to look at what the different solutions could be. We talked about all that, passing lanes, et cetera. And then put all that together in a package and then decide what, we would do first, what we would do next. Maybe you phase it, you prioritize it. I think we could all figure out what that would be. The other thing would definitely want to look at is, what do we do going through your towns? Do some of your communities want some sort of an alternate route around? Is that something, and those become very long-term, but it's certainly something that can be explored and we can all work through that. So I think that's exciting. I think it's needed in this community. You're a small county by regular population, but you're not a small county by the amount of people that come up here on a more regular basis now. And no, I don't think there's probably a few other counties like you around the state, but that have seen such a boom after COVID because everybody wants to get into the mountains. And this is, turned into one of the state's best places to access the mountains.
We have to plan for every weekend, not
Yeah.
what our regular full-time residents are. So we are starting our master transportation plan.
Yes.
And that's gonna look at maybe a shift, maybe not, but in major collectors, which is going to inform those intersections.
Right.
We've been talking intersections the 3 years I've been here. We really have got to identify some of those intersections and how we're gonna either purchase ground, how do we gain those right of ways to try and broaden some of that? And so as we're doing our master transportation plan, that's why I wanted to engage you guys right now also.
Yeah.
Is if you're starting to plan, we're planning, we should be doing it jointly,
Yeah.
some kind of a focus on where we touch.
Yeah.
Your guys, when anything happens on the highway, it is Valley County isn't doing their job. And people just forget, it's not Valley County that takes care of 55.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly together we could have a vibrant plan for planning our future. Donnelly's a huge issue in that when you turn left and you take off for Tamarack's trying to add 3,000 acres and, 10,000 more car trips a day. Donnelly has got to be looked at sooner rather than later. So if we're just now starting that plan, by the time that poor little community actually finds some resolution to that, I don't even know what that looks like in downtown Donnelly every weekend.
Sure.
There should be a light there.
Yeah.
Some things we're just gonna have to talk about trying to mitigate some of those issues sooner rather than later. Because if you're on a 7-year cycle and we're not even in there yet, I don't even know what happens when all that happens over there.
Right. And I think from the planning perspective, once you have a corridor plan and you're working from a corridor perspective, I think it makes it a lot easier for other funding opportunities. It makes it easier to get on, other potential federal funding opportunities. A lot of the stuff we put in our program are maintenance projects, right? But all of the work that we're seeing, or at least a majority of the work that we're seeing outside of our strategic initiatives program right now, all of the major projects, the widening projects that you're seeing down in the valley, or the work that we're doing in Pocatello, Idaho Falls, up in Coeur d'Alene, we're doing a lot of work on Interstate 90, on US 95. It's all being driven by, at one point there was a planning effort that went through, and now you're seeing the TECA money and some of these other federal funding sources that are coming through, and they're funding this work. So I think once you have a corridor plan, it puts you in a better position for some of these funding efforts, and you don't always have to then, go through the 7-year process. But I think just having a plan and then being able to execute a plan is something that we've never had from an ITD, from a Highway 55 perspective here. And if you guys are doing a plan, I think it behooves us to integrate those two things. And I hear what you're saying, but right now, from a department perspective, we are really trying to find ways to modernize the transportation system. And so while we are maybe a step behind, and I would agree with you, we are probably a little step behind, we need to plan so we can at least get caught up and potentially get ahead, right? So we really appreciate your guys' willingness to work with us, work together to integrate potentially whatever you come up with what we need to come up with, because I think if you guys are looking at more of a collector system of roads, then we're going to have to make sure that we identify where those intersections are, where this traffic's going to come out to. And certainly, we really don't want to put signals on a state highway, right? So we're going to have to work together to find ways to integrate, your roadways, which you're going to have to expand to meet the demand of the plats you're seeing, I think, come through your doors now with State Highway 55. So.
And I appreciate you. We're kind of out of time. Can you give us a really brief update on the Banks Loman intersection?
Yeah, sure. Rainbow Bridge I'd mentioned, I think you guys know a lot about that. But Banks to Loman, we expect a final report back. We did that Federal Lands Access Program or FLAP grant. They've analyzed that intersection. They've done some tremendous work actually, looking at our flagging operations on the weekends, and taking traffic counts when flaggers aren't out there to get an idea of the future volumes at that intersection. And based on what I heard the other day, we don't know what it will look like. I think we'd have to design it, but we're probably leaning towards some sort of a signalization. It looks like the best solution. What that stop control looks like, I think, we still have a lot of work to do there, but probably some sort of a signalization. It could be certain times of the week, certain times of the year, depending on how the traffic continues to morph there. Maybe, you have, it's stop controlled coming into the highway and the highway still flows, and then the pattern changes. It's going to take a lot of signage. It's more than likely, it's not just going to be drop poles in 4 directions and walk away. It's going to take some significant widening there at that intersection to accommodate, a signal safely. So that's kind of what I saw in the report we got, or at least we got a PowerPoint report, but we're going to get an official report here in a couple of months from them with all the findings, and they could come back and give you. We gave them some additional. Can you do a little more of this? Can you do a little more of that? So I wouldn't call it final yet, but that's kind of the high level of what we heard, and that's where it's leaning. It doesn't mean that's what we're going to do. It just means that's where we're leaning. We're going to have to come up with both a short and a long-term plan. Their research showed that the flagging is working. It is helping. It's certainly better than what we had.
Spent 2 hours trying to turn right about a month ago.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but there are
Just to turn right.
But we don't flag every weekend. We're flagging more. We're probably going to have to come up with a plan of how much more do we need to flag. There was some talk in this report about potential automated systems as an interim, or something we can use until maybe the long-term solution is determined and then potentially built in the future. And funding is a big issue, because while it is certainly from a mobility standpoint, it's a problem. It really isn't a safety problem, because people are so aware of it, and frankly, people have to sit there and wait, and it kind of moderates itself. But it definitely is a mobility problem. So we feel like we've started through this FLAP grant process. We could potentially get more FLAP grant funding, and we also have our bank shed there. The Forest Service, I think, would like to see us leave. And so we're going to have to find a solution for that. And so maybe we can leverage some federal funding into that as well. So there'll be some federal funding opportunities there. But that's kind of a 50,000-foot view of where we're at right now on that.
Are you guys gonna take that road from Banks to Loman? No?
No,
Brian saying
not right
no.
now. I mean,
Well,
No, there's been a lot of
always,
requests.
always
the major corridor, it just seems to me like
like an ITD. Well, yeah. We haven't, I don't believe we have any conversations with Boise County.
It's ours first before you take
I
it.
think they would
did
like
for
us.
several years. They talked
Yeah.
with them, and then it's kind
so
of.
Vincent.
I would think we'd probably get swap the highway up in McCall faster than we would swap that.
So Vince, a lot of us has
We'd like to
complained
do
to
that.
get,
Oh, what's that?
back to the red lights. A lot of us have complained about those 3 or 4 that have already gone in north of Boise as they keep progressing up. And I did hear that the one at Avamore, they're planning to actually do an overpass.
They are.
So when you're looking at this thing at Banks, I mean, I know that terrain's an issue there, but
And there's so many agencies. You got the state, the county,
Yeah.
the Forest Service,
Mhm.
Department of Lands. It's
so, I mean, long-term, if you look at that and go, well, you start putting these stopgap things like red lights, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Some sort of an energy.
Yeah,
Put the decision makers at that.
Yeah, that's
At
it.
That would be like one
intersection
big
for a little while.
huge bridge there. The confluence of, you got the, I mean, and also you got to add in, you got the confluence of three rivers basically coming together right there. I mean, it's really a tricky spot. And just the footprint that I saw the other day alone, for something, some sort of stop control there, is a pretty big footprint, and you're eating into quite a bit of the hillside. You're over the river, right? So you're widening the bridge there. It's a pretty significant project right now. So,
Well, thanks you guys. I'm sorry, but we're out of time.
yeah, sorry. It was a good conversation.
Thanks for coming up. Brian, good job on the road.
Any questions you guys have, Jeff knows how to get a hold of them. I'm sure you do.
I do too.
You're lucky I don't have your phone number. I have Vince's.
Commissioners, if I can just ask a question to Brian, how is the plowing at the Stonebreaker recreation area
So
been?
I
Is that-
just talked to the fishing game guy Friday, I think it was. So I'm gonna run up to where I'm headed after I'm done.
Jordan Messner.
We'll plow. Are they using both entrances to that area or just one?
Jeff
There's
saying
our road
both.
guy right there. Oh, it's a horseshoe thing?
So it's both, so we'll plow past both of them.
Sorry, I'm not gonna give Jordan your phone.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right.
Okay. All right, thank you
Thank you
guys.
so
Safe
much for all
travels.
you're doing. Thanks for the update. I
Thanks,
really
guys.
appreciate it. Thanks, Alex, for all the work.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
See you soon.
See you later.
And get McCall flipped. Get that road in McCall
Hey,
flipped.
go, yeah, call Adams County immediately, that one down there in Dunn, where you get your salt.
Oh, you add in the new meadow shed?
Yeah.
See ya.
See you guys, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on down our agenda. Sorry, Dick.
Brian, you may want to comment on this next conversation.
I already got it on an email, so it's all right.
You've got
So this is an
documentation.
action item. This is approve a winter maintenance agreement with Nick Teresco. Nick, did you get everything done with the state and Idaho Department of Lands? Have you given it to Jeff?
Yeah,
Jeff
so
has all that?
Doesn't have anything.
this is the email from Brian Inwards. Thank you for stopping and discussing your access to 55. You're doing an excellent job of keeping the snow cleared and not pushing it in the highway. We have no issues with continuing the maintenance to the access of your property. Please feel free to call or stop by if you have any questions or concerns, Brian Inwards. And then the state,
And I've seen both of those. My question to you is, did you get those to Jeff and get a permit filled out and signed and done with Jeff?
yeah, I did that before the first meeting.
So do you have all that information, Jeff?
Got the permit, I haven't signed off on it yet because we were working through this. But now we've got to do the application and the actual permit with the liability insurance and everything.
And you agreed to do all that, correct?
Yes, yeah, and we are working with some contractors that could be the contractor with the insurance policy as well. So
So then
if we need to adjust that with them being responsible for the snow clearing, that's fine.
So it sounds like everything's kind of still in flux. I kind of was hoping you would have that all done and everything would be ready for our signature today. So what I would like to do is,
We could approve it pending.
we can approve it pending your getting the permit.
Well, I mean, the permit is in the hands that needs the signatures. The permit is done on my end. It's filled out.
You have all your insurances and everything, so he can sign it.
There was no proof of documentation or anything on that permit. It was just,
This was our old permit that Nick came in early winter, late fall. When we started this whole,
what was the date on that permit when I turned it in?
I don't see a date on it. It was notarized October 22. So this was before we really started going. I mean, this is our application that our deputy prosecutors came up with. Yeah, this outlines proof of liability, if you're gonna hire a contractor, how we'd go about doing that.
Right. And we didn't start this discussion until when, November?
It was barely after we got this, that's why I was like, well, let's hold off
Okay,
till we.
'cause we've got an updated application
And it started snowing and we're.
in the middle of it. And I would assume that we would use the new updated application and permit fee.
There was no permit fee.
I mean, permit, sorry, no fee. But there is a requirement for the liability insurance, so your contractor's gonna have to provide that. That's gonna be part of that.
Okay.
And if you decide to plow it, you will have to provide it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, and
My question for Brian is, so this is for one individual that lives on that road. If you have other individuals, I mean, you don't have any problems with that road going through and accessing in that location?
No, I mean, it's an existing road, so we really, as long as they're not pushing stuff out on the highway and creating an issue for us, we don't have any issue with it. I mean, if it was a brand new road, it's a little different, but, I mean, it's accessible all summer long into the fall, so, yeah, we don't have any issues.
We just had concerns where it's located coming down that grade, but
And they
You're gonna have
believe
more
actually
issues.
just, our sign crew installed signs this last fall
And
showing an intersection coming up right there.
okay.
so to mitigate the risk, like we had discussed earlier, I think we should, since that road has historically been closed for the past 30-some years during the winter, if we could get a road closed sign, we'll keep it right there at 55, so anybody beyond that point is trespassing, breaking the law, so they have no, not trespassing, but the road is closed, so boom, they're breaking the law. And two, we should put up bags or flip over signs on the Crown Point turn-in points so that, Emily and I are the only two people accessing that.
I understand that, Nick, but the issue is we have other roads that people can come in on county roads and they can not drive great and slide off in the corners or get stuck or whatever. That's just part of being on the roads. I don't think we can go in there and block people from accessing that road because you're plowing it.
That's the sheriff's office decision. They're the only ones that are.
Allowed to close a road,
Legally close a road.
right? Not the commissioner, not the road department. Only the sheriff's department can close a road.
They can advise me to put up a road closed sign and I abide by whatever they want.
So Jeff, is there anything else you need from us other than just the approval to go ahead and issue the permit?
That's it. Once you guys are okay with it, I'll sit down with these two and we'll go through the application process and stuff.
So are you two good with this? I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the winter maintenance agreement with Nick Teresco.
Thank you.
I'll second it with reservation. I'm not gonna lie, this is a annual deal. I wanna see how it goes this year.
Okay, we got a motion, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Make sure you get all the paperwork done and work with Jeff, and hopefully you guys will all be successful.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, our next agenda item is an action item as well. This is renewal of a lease agreement with Boise Office Equipment. Jeremy, come on up.
We'll see how this year goes. Wanna see how many times people are pulled out of that hole down there.
Did you send this to us?
Yes.
I sent it to
It was
Clerk Miller.
included in the packet.
It's in the packet?
So the gist of the renewal is in the road or the building department here and planning and zoning, they have a large format printer scanner that is very old and it's out of support from both BOE and Xerox. So this is to renew the lease and have it the lease that we're paying and have it the old one replaced with the newest model that is supported.
It's the same cost, same lease?
It'll be a little bit more, so it'll be the same price as this one was when it was new. After so many years, they had taken off some of the lease because of its age. So it had gone down to like $390 something a month.
instead of what it was originally, which is like $412 a month. So this will bring it back, basically back up to what that original lease price was. So it'll bring it back up by, I think it was $23 or $43 or something.
Well, they need the, they
Well, I
have
think
to have
it's
the
good.
printer, so.
Yeah, you're getting.
Yeah, and we're not going to be able to get supplies for it soon, and they won't be able to fix it if it breaks. So
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that we renew the lease agreement with Boise Office Equipment for a copier, printer, scanner.
Second.
Move to second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Got anything signed, Jeremy?
I don't know if you've signed one of these in a while, but they're kind of goofy.
Well, I'm kind of a goofy guy, so.
I can fill out this top part. This is the non-appropriation, so
Okay.
you know,
Good, I don't
have
want.
funds 1 year or whatever we can. I mean, they'll obviously can get the printer, but I haven't seen this with anybody but you. Get your hand all loosened up, because this has an initial of each page at the bottom.
Okay.
And then if you go through, you'll see they're in yellow.
Okay.
3 different pages.
Will you use your initials?
Yeah.
Go to extension too. Scott, I don't see we're going to yours for Christmas decorating. What's up with that?
A bunch of Scrooges work in the facilities department.
We have a Christmas tree, but I don't think we're on the same level as anybody else.
We challenge you for next year.
Have you walked into the DMV?
Oh, my
Oh man, is that a busy room or what?
Walked in, I know, it's kind of like,
I
ooh.
think somebody had a lot of like old Christmas wrapping just laying around. Well, I gotta admit, Sherry did all of ours in here. She did a phenomenal job. So,
It took me 2 minutes.
Do we have a couple of minutes here before?
Or to 11:15.
yeah, we do. We can shut down and be back here at quarter after for our next agenda item.
Chairman, we're unmuted.
Okay, welcome back. We're gonna move on down our agenda. Our next agenda item is an update on the controlled burn of wood debris at solid waste transfer. Mr. Klingon, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, I think it was burning. No one even knew it was burning, I don't think, hardly. It was, it burned really good. We didn't get a lot of smoke. What they did burn, they burnt the, kind of the one that was running parallel to the road, kind of north of it. Back they had another pile that didn't light off, so I called one. He said the SoFi people and his captain or something didn't think it was too green and wouldn't burn, and they wanted to wait till the next burn. I told him I can't. I mean, we need that space. So he was going to contact them and see about what their response to it was and get back to me. And I haven't heard back. I thought he was actually going to be here today,
But the pile that they did burn actually burned up
yeah,
pretty
it
good.
burned real good. I went up and looked at it on Thursday and stuff, and it was looked pretty good. You know, it's reducing down pretty good. They keep it kind of stirred up and, you know, bring the stuff to the top, and it's looking pretty good at this point.
Yeah, with an excavator, they could have taken the green stuff and put it on top of the pile that was burning.
Yeah, but
Got
see,
me
they're not used to using an excavator. That's why I want to get the Southern Idaho Timber people up there next year. I talked with the gentleman when he was here, because they have certain ways they stack that they burn real good. So see if we can get some training for the Lakeshore people, and so that they do burn better. And then, like I said, I just got to wait to hear and see what they're going to do with that one big pile.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, I want to carry this discussion a little bit farther into this. You know, going back, the reason we're here and having some of these discussions is in last year, our experience was really bad up there. As you guys are all well aware, we got a lot of calls. And it was nasty, you know. So we've kind of pushed this and tried to, and I think hopefully we're going in the right direction. And one of the things I will say that I've monitored the air quality since Thanksgiving every day. We have some help here now in Valley County with quite a few, not a lot, but a few people have these monitors, air quality monitors around. And you can pick them up by going to purpleair.com. There's about 3 of them around Pale Lake. There's one down around Finn Church area. There's one just on that, I think it's the Boulder arm of Cascade Reservoir, and then one here at the airport. So you can get a kind of little, fairly good picture of what the air quality has looked like. And so since that big storm came in, one of the things, they picked the weekend that we had the most of that heavy snow that we had the last period, which was the lowest pressure, air pressure. So that pushed the smoke out of here on that initial burn. I mean, every day through that burn, essentially, and I talked to the people at the landfill, nobody even knew it was burning.
No one knew it burnt.
It did a good job, but it took selecting that proper time to do it. And but one other little thing, I got a little nervous when I realized it hadn't all burned up in about that 4-day period that they had there. So going into last week, we kind of creeped back into high pressure. And I was thinking, oh wow, we're going to get it. You know, we'll see that smoke, but we didn't, and I think there's a reason for that. When I was up visiting with the guys there that managed that pile, at his suggestion, he said, you know, I think it's a good idea not to mix and stir this thing until we get past this high pressure, because that way then you have minimal smoke. Good idea. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened.
Yeah.
So consequently, we've seen a little smoke drifting around, but our quality at all these places where we're able to monitor has been really quite good, you know, and acceptable. I was upset. I don't know what their idea was on not burning that second pile.
I don't either. It's like,
And they didn't seem to know
they
there.
thought it was too green and stuff, and it was too big. the size of it, but
I don't know how it could be any more green than the other stuff.
that's what kind of my
Yeah.
question when he said that, because the big pile had plenty of green in it, but he's supposed to be getting back, and then they'll look.
But having said that,
Mm-hmm.
Scott, I got quite a lot of pictures. I went up and took a look at it. Stephanie Nelson, who I've gotten a little bit more interested in this because in her business, they tend to create this kind of thing. So I've been able to, and I really appreciate that. But we went up and looked at it, and there is a lot of heavy material in there. And I know that when we had our discussion before we rented that $50,000 piece of equipment, that we were going to separate that heavy stuff, especially stumps. And so, anyway, it's still in there, and it won't burn. So in our discussion there, this guy up there, I said, yeah, well, why don't we just pick that stuff out and just set it aside, put it on the top of the pile next year or something like that after it dries. You know, because it's not going to do anything but smoke until we do something about it. But anyway, I found out a couple things in talking to the other people around the county. You know, some of that heavy material goes there because it's construction stuff off of these clearing sites.
Yeah, they're doing a lot.
And I talked to one of the landscapers. He doesn't take the woody debris other than the stumps. The reason he takes those is it's hard to get rid of them. You know, so we need to look at that for, I mean, going forward, in my opinion, it's a matter of managing it the same way we decided we had to do the recycle. You just got to get more hands-on piece by piece management, I think. Because I don't, we're probably going to dispose of it by fire until we get a better plan. The long-term plan should be to grind it, I think, but.
And the guy with the landscaper that was just bringing the stumps, what was he doing with the rest of the stuff?
He takes it home to his own lot and burns it himself. So the deal is, this problem goes beyond just the county. I'm looking at my personal goal is to hopefully put the county in a position of being at least a leader in trying to correct that issue so we don't have that forced smoke season. I don't think we deserve it, and there is a possibility going down the road that we can make some changes there. But I will compliment them on doing a good job of this burn. Sorry that one's still sitting up there, kind of hanging over us.
Juan says he didn't realize it was on the agenda today.
Oh, okay. I thought when I talked to him, he said, I'll see you on Monday, but.
To me, Ed, it's a lot like the glass situation that Joey's been pushing.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. It sounds good, but how much money do you want to spend subsidizing that program?
Yeah.
To me, if we could find a market for wood chips, Tamarack Mill's looking at it. I don't know if there's anybody else where we could at least compensate or get some of our money back. I would be willing to go for it. But that's why we started burning years back, because it was way too much money to chip it.
Yeah.
And we're going to be forced to chip the C&D. And a gentleman talked to Ed, and I got the information. And Scott Campbell, he's interested in grinding it. But before he goes forced, he wants to talk to Jericho and stuff.
Is he the same guy that grinds Payette's landfills?
I don't know. I
know Payette landfill has some guy that comes in twice a month and grinds everything.
Yeah.
They just put it in the landfill. They don't sell it.
Boise, I think they have someone from Meridian that has a contract to take theirs away. And they grind it, and it gets used, as I understand, as bedding in the feedlots and that kind of thing.
They can on the green stuff. The C&D stuff can't. I don't think there's really no market other than to like Tamarack. Someone's going to burn it.
Well, I think the C&D was what he was. Mr. Campbell was interested in.
Yeah, that's what he wants to grind that.
Yeah,
and then
he must have some ideas.
I think we just need to have a plan to stay on the conversation. I know the Forest Service is talking about providing grinders to different areas.
Yep.
Then you talk to the next guy and they're going to burn it all. You know, Tamarack Mill's probably somebody, you know, we probably need to reach back to again and find
Yeah.
out what their plan is. We just need to stay on it and
Mhm.
continue to have the conversation and don't let it go.
Yeah.
Don't let it slide.
I thought Tamarack said they could grind stumps, or maybe the future stuff's gonna grind stumps.
I think
They
so
have a
too.
machine on a trackhoe that breaks them up. into
Breaks them
smaller
up.
pieces. Then they put them in the.
So I don't know if it's something we have to arrange with someone, you know, with the regular long dumps or something to haul stumps and over there and let them break them up and grind them and burn them.
Well, the other issue that's gonna play into this here pretty quick is the fact that Adams County is about to be certified where they can take all of our trash.
Mhm.
And if we get to that point, I think we need to sit back down with Lakeshore and say, okay, what's the long haul cost gonna be? Because this place is twice as close.
Yeah.
And, you know,
So far, they haven't been able to really give us a break on that long haul. It's just,
No, they charge us per ton, basically know how far, no matter how far they
no
are.
matter how far away it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're charging, you know, yeah. Basically, they're charged per ton with no mileage involved. That's what they're doing.
and they're gonna be driving right by that mill if
Yeah.
we do need to take some product over there.
So one of the things that strikes me is we got an awful lot of hands in this pot, you know, and there's, you know, you got this, we had this discussion about, Lakeshore taking back the C&D, for instance.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's part of their contract. It's clearly, and you pointed out, Jim and Scott, is clearly part of their contract. So the other part of it is we move forward to the wooded debris. We don't need a whole bunch of people, you know, bringing that to fruition, but we need some spot that makes sense. Somebody that has some, you know, an interest in making sure it gets done right, but gets done more importantly, you know.
See, the woody debris is in their contract, so it kind of involves them.
Yeah,
And the management of the site clearly calls out the woody debris, not so much the C&D,
Yeah.
but the.
Yeah, but the issue with that contract is that
Mhm.
they'll do the work, but they're gonna charge whatever it costs them plus
Right.
15%.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah.
That's when we said, wait a minute, that's like, they
Yeah.
don't care if they save money or not.
Yeah. So
That's my thing is,
if we get into that, then are we gonna take that out of the contract and the county hire people to run a grinder and buy our own trucks and everything else, or?
yeah.
So
Well, anyway, that's-
we kind of got to get a little clear direction whether we're going to include them in it or if we're going to go strictly on our own with it, or exclude them from it and hire a contractor to take over that part of it.
Well,
We kind of got, I guess, decide what direction we want to go,
If we
buy our own
could,
equipment or not.
if we could come up with a plan, I know we talk about plans and everything, but if we, you know, if we come up with a plan for how we're gonna move forward, number one is we got this debris, we're gonna keep taking it. I know that the people at the landfill tell me they'd like to go back to that 2 weeks in the fall, 2 weeks in the spring. To them, it's much more manageable
Mhm.
than this full on, all summer long, all 7, 8 months long,
Mhm.
that we take this stuff on and have to deal with it. And that pile's getting big.
Oh, yeah.
Well, where is
And,
it going the rest of the year? That
Well,
confuses me.
it's
I know. And,
it's free those 2 weekends, or you know, and then we charge the whole rest of the year. We don't have the free yard waste
Right.
and everything else. So
They're
everyone's
still
charged.
taking it, we're just charging them.
Yeah, the only ones paying right now through the summer are the commercial people doing lot improvements, clearings, stuff like that. All the residential stuff is free to keep people from burning in their yards
Right.
and stuff. So
So that's, you know, the conversation then, we're fighting each other. You're
Yeah.
either burning it in your yard or you're bringing it to
Yeah.
us
Right.
and burning it. And, you know, I'd much rather have it at a central
Yeah.
location than individual burning and
well,
That's what one-
the
yeah.
building permit, and that's been the other issue is the fire departments and SIBA didn't want to deal with that.
yeah, they
Well-
cut their burn permits by 75% or so
Yeah.
when we went to us burning it, and the people.
Debris not, to me, is not that challenging. It's the construction debris that's the pain.
Yeah, that's the ones. Yeah.
I think we can handle all the woody debris,
Mhm.
you know, out there, but it's construction debris that's gonna cost us an arm and a leg this time.
So it's gonna, in my opinion, it's gonna call for some cooperative, you know, work with a lot of different agencies and people. But one of the problems we have with say, using the fire department, say, or using our emergency services, for burning, is that, the reason for that is it's where it's at. It's the transfer side. If we were doing that any other place in the county, you could assign someone to take care of that. And it wouldn't, and then they work, sure, then you work with air quality. And then work with the weather, do whatever, those things up there should have been burned months ago, in my opinion. You burn it when it's dry, but you burn it also when it's not gonna go anywhere,
Yeah.
so get a lot of issues, a lot of people, like I say, a lot of hands in that pot.
The thing about why Donley's doing is because they're using it for a training burn. And I don't know if they train anymore.
Now, they were doing that with the C&D, the woody debris, not so much.
No.
And that's how that was the stipulation that we could burn the C&D, is that it was used for training. And they did say it's still kind of a caveat in there, but they're not going to allow it.
No, that's the thing is from a standpoint of realistically, from a training standpoint, there's really no training for a fire department.
Well, it wasn't a C&D because that burns so hot they could put on their gear and get close to fire and stuff. They did do that stuff,
but
especially with new people and things. But
Yep, new guys get to
you
train in
get
that
know what it'd be by high heat.
Right. And learning respirator and all that training.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm
Okay.
glad that at least got one pile burned up.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with the other one.
Who's in the loop on the other one? And
Okay.
if we have to wait till spring or next fall, we can wait.
Well, and one thing I wanted Mr. Chairman to talk about too, in the same vein, is we got a fairly large pile there that comes in from, Bring It, Don't Burn It. Apparently, we went in an agreement with the city of McCall some time ago to dispose of their Bring It, Don't Burn It stuff, and it's been a problem. And I went there and looked at the pile myself. Start with it's contaminated. There's a lot of junk in it. But it's kind of like if you remember people burning in their backyards if you happen to be downwind, it's a big pile of needles and they'll burn pretty good on the outside. I don't care when they rake them up. They won't burn the inside unless you get in there and really work them. And even that, it's a real problem. And when you get a pile that big, essentially what they have is a pile of compost, or compostable
This
material.
one at Lake Fork Shop, is
Yeah.
that the one you're talking about?
And so Jeff has decided, to my knowledge, to not burn that one this year and give it one more year of drying and hope that it'll get to the point where they can. And I talked to the people at the shop who actually do the burning, and they're very conscientious of what that means. They've burned it, and they're telling me, there's no amount of stirring that's going to make that burn. And then especially if you wait till several rainfalls and, 3 foot of snow. And so that's a problem that I hope we can work with. And going into moving forward to that one, we need to send part of that problem back to McCall. In other words, collect this stuff and we have to dispose of it. So maybe there's some opportunities in the future to move that project a little in a different direction. And separate it out so that you actually get the woody debris. Fine, you can burn that. But that other stuff like pine needles and leaves and stuff and dirt, and all that stuff that gets raked up in people's yards.
Again, you're creating
Yeah.
one issue,
Right.
to control another, because if
Yeah.
they don't bring it there, if you don't do it that way,
I
what are they
know.
gonna burn on site or, I would rather have it in a central location where you're actually
So
controlling
what
it.
I'm saying is this the way we will, going into the future, is that the best way to handle it? We need to figure out a way to make that stuff go away reasonably and not just impact, because that pile is even worse than probably the dump for part of the neighborhood there if they're trying to burn it when it won't burn. And going into high pressures and all that stuff with it.
Yeah.
So just coming down here this morning, this is the kind of area you like to see. And that's what's happened after this burn. So they've done a good job with that one. I guess the goal is to continue to work. with that program to improve it. You know,
And I think people are more aware of that now, Ed.
Yeah.
I think everybody's more aware. And I honestly felt like the issue last year was the fact that they piled it with a cat. And it was,
they're still, they're still pushing it up that way.
That's gonna smoke and smoke forever and ever. It was
Yeah.
piled wrong.
Yep.
But hopefully we fix that with the excavator
So
pile.
this is gonna smoke for quite a while if they don't do some manipulation after when they get another low pressure. You know, so, yeah.
Okay, well, we're out of time. Thanks, Scott, for the update. Our next agenda item is an action item. This is the Tamarack PUD extension and update. Cinda, Scott, welcome. What happens if we say no?
P&Z already approved it.
Notice he chuckled. I just want
And?
to get it
early and go get lunch, maybe.
And it wasn't appealed?
Huh?
It wasn't appealed?
There's only one person opposed.
Oh.
That was Joey.
He wasn't really opposed. He came to see me afterwards and apologized.
Wanted it on.
Was that quite a long discussion? Good. So you guys are asking for an extension request till 2025. It's been approved by P and Z. They kind of agree with you. I went through it the other day. I don't see any issues. So I can't. So whoever wants to go first, Scott or Cindy, go for it.
Well, the staff report, I'll go first. The applicant is Tamarack Resort 2 LLC. It's for an extension. Scott Turlington will be presenting. Tamarack Resort 2 LLC will present the summary of the progress to date and planned improvements of Tamarack Resort for the next 3 years. Information includes summary of the original plan, progress made, explanation of what has yet to be completed, updated completion dates, and then the specific topics of number of dwelling units, commercial space, public transportation and parking, utilities, employees and employee housing, ski mountain statistics, and recreation. Application was made to planning and zoning on November 7th. Legal notice was posted in the Star News on November 17th and November 23rd. Potentially affected agencies were notified November 8th. Property owners within 300 feet of the property line were sent fact sheets November 10th, and then it was posted on site on November 22nd, the Valley County website on November 8th. Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on December 8th. Agency comments received were from Central District Health, that they have no objection to the extension. Department of Environmental Quality provided their comments on their typical format letter. The Valley County Code 9-9-4 states extensions are approved, may be approved by the commission, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission, if it can be shown as necessary and in the public interest. On December 8th, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved the extension of Tamarack Resort to December 31st, 2025, and recommended to the Board of County Commissioners that the PUD has already been established and will need no additional extension hearings, with the understanding that substantial changes will require additional public hearings. So the ordinance says P&Z Commission approves it, which they did, and they approved it for 3 years. And then they recommended to the Board of County Commissioners that you waive future extensions because they've already been established in their current PUD form.
Explain
Follow
that
that?
further, no?
Huh?
No. So beyond 2025?
Right, just
Waive further,
approve the PUD as it, just waive future extension hearings.
No, I have a problem with that, so I think, not so much that I'm against them, but I think we just need to be, everybody needs to be notified. This is the time when everybody steps back and takes a breath and says, okay, Scott's gonna tell us what they have done, what they didn't get done, those kind of things. I don't think they should get carte blanche.
Well, it's not a carte blanche approval, it's just a carte blanche. We don't have to go through the hearing for the extension because they've been established.
they've got 3 more years. So that next hearing would be 3 years out, right? And so
So-
that hearing is just an informational tool.
And then the last part of that was that they come back every 3 years and give us an update.
So we won't get anything on their expansion plans? We won't?
Oh, absolutely you will. They're
So
gonna
that's
amend,
not gonna be part of the PUD?
no, they're gonna amend the PUD. That's not within this PUD.
Well, you know,
That was
I
my concern.
don't understand. You say that the P and Z thinks that we really shouldn't hear another extension on this particular thing.
Because they're
Right, because
established.
it's kind of nonsensical, because what are you going to do if you deny the extension? I mean, it's already established.
Problem with that is it puts extension, basically extension just becomes permanent for anyone that applies for it, instead of having a time frame on it.
Just a recommendation, they already approved the 3-year extension,
Right,
so you don't have to
right.
agree with them.
Yeah, I agree that I don't think we should waive those extensions. I think that's just a way to get updated on a project.
Okay,
And when they do come for an extension, they come back and have a reason for extending it, not just indefinite.
So what you're telling me is, why are we even doing this today?
Yeah,
because he's gonna update you.
Okay, we can give us an update, but what I just heard you say is, it doesn't matter what we say at this level. Anyway, planning and zoning already extended it, period. So our subdivision on a PUD allows the planning and zoning commission to make that decision.
To make the extension, because they, you know, like Jug Mountain's market driven. It's just wide open. Tamarack, they had like a 20-year, was it 20-year deadline to get everything done that was originally approved. So what we do is we just keep coming back for extensions. Nobody except Joey has ever opposed it.
Well, we extended it in 2019, correct? So was that for 3 years or 4 years?
3.
Now we're asking for another 3 years to 2025. Are you gonna be asking one after that?
Well,
I mean, you want the possibility, I'm assuming.
we're not gonna have the resort done in 3 years. I guess that's a good way to put it.
So Scott, go ahead and come on up the mic, give us kind of what you're thinking about, your plans and why the extension.
Sure, Commissioner Scott Turlington, the Tamarack Resort, address is 311 Village Drive, Tamarack, Idaho 83615. And so I appreciate the chance to get up today and talk about what we've done the last 3 years and what we're proposing to do for the next 3 years. This is kind of broken out into two areas, really the last 3 years in section 1 and the next 3 in section 2. I can be as detailed or as high level as you want. Feel free to ask questions along the way, but I thought it would be good just to touch on some of the projects we've completed in the last 3 years, just so you have some idea of what we got done and what we didn't get done based on what we said we were going to do in 2019. So the first section I would start on is the Village and Village Plaza. So that consists of 6 buildings today and 129 units total. We've sold 92 of those units, and the final 37 are under construction and will be complete in January of 2023. And we've sold a number of those, or at least they're under contract, and we'll start closing on those the end of January. Those consist of, in the 6 buildings, different numbers of condominiums in those buildings, but for the most part, we've got half of the 37 done. And so we're definitely on track to get that complete as we thought we would. The other key thing that's been happening in the village that we talked about 3 years ago is completion of what we're calling Seven Devils Tap House. That'll actually be opening on Wednesday of this week. And that's about 5,000 square feet. And it'll have a restaurant, full bar, and have seating that will accommodate approximately 318 people. The balance of the commercial spaces in the 2 remaining buildings, which we call Calvi 1 and Calvi 2, the balance of those commercial spaces are being programmed for tenancy. And we anticipate that we'll add those tenants throughout 23 and 24. I'd note we've had quite a few inquiries about leasing space there. So we've started developing our packages for the lease and the build out and how that'll look. So I do expect we'll see some leases unfold from third-party vendors next year. Currently, Tamarack not only owns, but we operate all the commercial space at the resort. all of the restaurants, with the exception of Krusty's Pizza out of McCall. They operate the pizza joint there in the village. So on Lake Wing, this was another previous 3 years. We did develop new plans for a building permit set. We've got just finishing up on those, and we expect that we'll submit soon for the building plans on those with the county. Our intent, if the market's there, is to start construction on Lake Wing sometime next year. We'll make that decision as we get out of the winter season and see how the remaining sales go for the units that we have in the village. But those plans have been updated, and there's been a few changes to that. So we'll be in to see the county soon on what that looks like.
Question, Scott, are those 3-story, 5-story?
So the original plan had it at 4 stories.
4 stories.
This is the structure that's on the golf course. The foundation's there, the crane's set there forever. But our new plan would add an additional level to it. Don't know that we'd pick up that many more rooms. I think we're still in that 43 to 45 units. They'd be condominiums. So, but we're going to add some different space down lower than what we had initially planned for. The other big thing, which everyone seems to have noticed, is the sprung structures, the domes that we had out on the snow front. Those are gone, except for the Wild Horse daycare facility, which is where we provide daycare for our employees, and the operations dome. Those two are still in place and expect they'll be there for at least 2 more years, maybe 3. Especially with our daycare facility, we'll transition into a newer location as we get the space and the ability to build those. The same thing with ski patrol. We just felt it made more sense to leave the operations dome where ski patrol operates out of right now. It's out of the way, but we were able to get the snow front completely regraded. And most of all the utilities are gone. We have a few to get out next summer, but we'll turn the snow front into really an amphitheater for summer, and it'll be undeveloped beyond that. We also were able to get Aspen Glade completed, platted, and most of those lots have sold. That's just as you come into the resort on the south side next to the golf course, and then also Ponderosa Ridge, which is adjacent to the driving range. Those are going to be Tamarack's first built product that we've offered that the resort is building since the old cottages and chalets that we initially provided. So we've got 2 foundations in on those, and those 2 will be going vertical, and there's 15 units there total. So that'll be sort of the refreshed, chalet. And we've started sales on those, and we expect to sell those through the winter and hopefully have those sold at least by the end of next year. And those will be products that we build. And so there's not a lot of decisions for the owners to make. Pretty popular products, and so we're excited to bring something new to the market on those. Design Plaza, which we had talked about several years ago, has always been intended to be townhomes. We have not made that conversion at this point. What we've done, and with the county's support and blessing, is we've turned those modular units into workforce housing. So we currently house contractors and employees. Our J1s are there for this winter in that location, and the TMA facilities are still in that location as well. We expect that within the next 3 years that we will develop that as it was originally envisioned to be townhomes. We also added at the top of Whitewater, which is on the northern side of the resort, Crest Court. That was a little different than what we initially expected, but that consists of 6 single-family residential lots. And so we've got those in place, and I think we've got 2 left to sell on those. So on employee housing, we've made a lot of strides there. We've been providing housing for employees off-site since acquisition. We're still doing that. Our plan was to have the first 128 beds ready in January. That date has been since pushed back to April. We do have all of our employees housed currently, so we still have that, but we ran into some issues with some of the engineering from the manufacturer on the units. But solutions in place. They're working hard right now to deliver those units in April, so they'll be available going into the summer for our employees. And we'll continue to build and add to our what's called Lakeview Village, the housing as our employee base grows. As you recall, our PUD requires that we provide beds for 40% of our workforce. And so which we're doing a little bit more than that now, but the necessity's there. And so we have the ability to do that, but we'll continue to keep that number around that 40% as we grow our employee base over the next 5 to 10 years. I think ultimately, kind of knowing what we know now, and there's been a lot of advances in technology that allow us to reduce labor, like for example, in snowmaking. The snowmaking equipment that we've invested in doesn't require multiple operators. It requires someone with a phone, and you can run the entire snowmaking system. So instead of running a snowmaking operation with 8 or 9 employees, we can do it with 1. So there have been advances in technology. So I think our seasonal peak employment numbers we'll see will probably come in around 1,000, based on kind of how we're doing it today, which would mean about 400 employees we'd have to provide our housing for. So we're on track to do that. Our housing that we have slated, we actually have about 585 beds that we'll build out. So I think we'll be fine on that number and have a little bit of excess that we can use for contractors or other folks outside of the resort.
But how many homes do you think that will open up on the valley floor?
That's a hard question, Commissioner. You know, most of our beds, so for example, we have 60 J1s, and they're the international students that travel in for the season. We have 60 this season, and we couldn't get them prior to. It was, because we didn't have the housing that we could guarantee. So I gotta think that it's going to open up a pretty big number, and I just don't know what that looks like. We had at least 3 or 4, management level positions that we lost because they were renting and owners decided to sell and there was nowhere else to go, so they had to move. So I'm guessing that we've probably got anywhere from 15 to 20 or so homes that are rented by employees that aren't in our housing that I think would move over to our housing once it's available. Because it's going to be year round for those that need it, not just seasonal. I think it'll help out, but it'll also hurt when the market's not what it is today. So I think there'll be a give and take on that. The golf course is the other big project we got completed, although there was a point last year where I wasn't sure if we'd get it, but we got the other 15 holes back. Restoration was really successful this summer. Again, short on labor. We only got 9 of the 18 holes complete. We were slated to have about 45 contractors on the course all summer. I think we hit our peak at about 18 contractors. We just couldn't get the labor in. And so lucky to have the 9 that we have. That will open next July, end of July, early August. And then as we get into next spring, we'll finish the restoration and renovation on the remaining 9. But unlike small chance we'll be able to play any of those next year. So we're looking at all 18 being available the following summer of 24. We did get the driving range complete, and it did actually open this past summer. So that's there as well. We did make some changes to the holes. We added a hole. We made some configuration changes. We put a few real estate lots along West Mountain Road. So we did change the course, made it more playable, more enjoyable, and it's not quite as hard as it used to be, which was a complaint we had quite a bit coming from our guests. On the ski facility side, we were able to get the Wildwood lift reinstalled. That was item 1 out of the box in September of 19. It's fully operational and has been since we acquired the resort. We've installed, I can't tell you, the distance of snowmaking pipe, but I can tell you how much it costs. But we've installed a lot of snowmaking pipe. Not sure what happened originally, but all of that stuff that had a 40-year lifespan, didn't make it. And so we invested in a different type of material that has a different, I think it lasts a lot longer. So it was a pretty big upgrade, but installation was much easier. And going forward, we'll continue to add to our snowmaking that we have, our snowmaking pipe, and also replacing the existing pipe that we have that's deteriorating and wearing out.
But can I ask you a question? Was that plastic pipe?
It was a steel metal pipe, and it wasn't. I don't think it was treated properly.
Right.
And with the soils in Valley County,
Eat it right up.
Ate it right up. The term is called electrolysis, and so they developed these pinholes that turned into big holes, and so we replaced it with a pipe called ductile. And ductile is it's a It's fabricated, but it's coated in a special material that keeps it from, it's not subject to electrolysis or any type of corrosion. And it's got about a 50-year lifespan on it. And it also, you don't have to weld it together, you just screw it together. So it's considerably more expensive, but your cost over the long term pays off a couple of times for it. So,
Sure.
so we're happy to have that in place. We've invested in 8 new snow guns. These are the new technology snow guns that operate on their own. They have their own weather station. They turn on, turn off based on humidity, dew point, temperatures, and they're extremely efficient. We estimate that we save about 30% in water consumption with these new guns. And so we'll eventually replace all of the guns. We have all 80 of them. We'll have these available, and our water consumption and power consumption, we've already started to see, has dropped considerably. So that's a big savings for us. The Heritage parcel, so the Heritage parcel is our parcel to the south, and that's where the bulk of our entitlements remain. And the state of Idaho DEQ currently has title to that. We have an option that we'll exercise in October of 2024 to acquire that parcel back, which will then, timing-wise, works out really well. That's when we'll move into the Heritage section of the resort where the remaining development is. So we started to do some planning in that area to kind of see what if we're going to make any changes, what we're going to do down there. But we're just getting started in that. But we do fully expect in October of 24 to exercise that option and move forward with Heritage. The final piece that we talked about was the marina at Poison Creek. So we still don't have a marina other than our day use facilities. We do have a draft lease from the state that we're negotiating currently and expect to have that wrapped up within a month or so. It's a 20-year lease with the state, and of course that's federal land, Bureau of Reclamation, but they do lease it to the state, and so it would be a sublease to Tamarack. And we'll over time develop up to 150 slips on the water, and we'll have fuel and a couple of facilities on land. We've really skinnied down the proposal on land just because it is a federal facility. There's options are pretty limited at the end of 20 years, and so they don't let you pick up your marbles and go home. They make you leave it and give it to someone else. So we know we're going to do that, but we don't want to overbuild and we don't want to underbuild. So we've got a few years once we start developing to understand what the need will be on there. So we'll most likely keep our facilities more temporary so they can't be removed. With the exception of the marina, it'll be a permanent facility. So
And that is a BOR site?
it's a BOR site. So it's managed under the Resource Management Plan for Lake Cascade, which the BOR has developed. And in that resource management plan, it only calls for 2 developments of marinas on Lake Cascade. One is at Poison Creek and the other is Van Wyck. Outside of that, unless the RMP changes, there's no other marinas that'll be developed for the public, and I think for private as well. And that's always been the plan for Cascade since they started developing, since they put together their resource management plan. So that's a quick overview of the last 3 years. We feel like we've got a lot more accomplished than that, but I don't know that, not sure what I'm missing, but I think that's the bulk of what we've done. So as we look to the next 3 years on the horizon, what we're planning, again, going back to Lake Wing, we're going to bring Lake Wing back in and we'll make the decision in the spring as to whether or not we'll move forward this year there. We've talked about how it's going to look a little different in terms of its size. It's going to be another level, but we're also going to add some other amenities to it, clubhouse, fitness facility, just some additional amenities to bring that side of the resort, a little more activity. We do currently have a spa at the lodge, which is operational. We partnered with a local company, Julie Stouts, and we JV'd, and so she's actually operating our spa, and she's doing a great job. And it's really been nice having that community, effort to help us with that. The Tamarack Village completion. So as I mentioned earlier, phase 1 is done, being completed right now with 6.0. And the completion on that will mostly consist of having the commercial spaces leased out and getting those occupied. The next phase of the village expansion, or phase 2, will add the next, I guess, iteration of buildings, this will mean a lot, but B8, B9, B11, and B12. One of those is a hotel pad, B11, and that is the pad that sits right now currently at the base of Tamarack Express, the bottom lift. So we're working diligently to secure a hotel partner, which we have, a brand that we'll bring in that we'll hopefully be able to announce next year. And we're working with a development partner to lay that out. So we do intend on bringing the first hotel to the resort, which will be nice to have. And size-wise, somewhere between 100 to 120 rooms. So not too large, but not too small. It'll fit the need that we have for lodging at this point. But I would envision that starting in earnest with construction, probably it takes about a year to do the planning and the design on those. So realistically, we could start mid to late 24, and then it's about an 18-month build. So there's a lot of time that goes into getting these. So I would say in the 25, early 26, it should be open. But again, just planning forward, trying to understand the needs, but that is a plan that is moving forward today. Employee housing, I talked about a few minutes ago, but we're going to continue to expand that. I have kind of mapped out what I think the trajectory looks like in terms of when we'll add the next 64 beds and the next 64. And so right now, based on our employee growth, I'm looking at probably in 2026 after we have these initial 128 beds available. So about 3 more years, we'll add another 64 beds. We'll keep what we have, outside the resort for those that want to keep it. But then about every 2 to 3 years, we anticipate adding 60 to 70 beds to cover the growth that we're seeing. And if it needs to happen sooner, it will. And if it doesn't need to happen at all, then it won't. So that's the great thing about the PUD process. It gives us a lot of flexibility, and it's quite valuable in how we are able to address those types of issues. One of the other items that's happening this upcoming summer is the TMA, which is our homeowners association. They're currently located in Design Plaza, and they're going to be building a new facility on the resort property. And it's going to go down in kind of that north parking lot area. As you come into the resort, there's a few acres that we've identified to put their new facilities on. So they'll have everything for their packages for snow removal. So that should get started late summer and probably take, within a year, they should be operational in that facility, which then opens us up to get into the Design Plaza townhomes that we talked about. So once TMA has been relocated and we have our housing so we can move contractors and employees out, that'll give us the ability to go into Design Plaza. And this is how originally the PUD read, is that we'll put townhomes in there, which we haven't built the townhome product since the beginning. So it'll be nice to have a new townhome product also. The Buttercup Lift, the Buttercup Custom Chalets. But speaking of the Buttercup Lift, I don't know if you're aware, but we didn't actually own the Buttercup Lift. It got acquired by a small group of homeowners back in the day. We just reacquired it. That was kind of like the golf course. So, but it actually didn't do anything for us, unlike the golf course. So, but we bit the bullet on that one and bought that lift back. So we have the Buttercup Lift back in operation, having some repair work done. But at the end of that road where the Buttercup Lift is, we have the ability or the opportunity to go in, and this is kind of what I call sort of getting into some of the infill within the resort. There's 12 lots that could work for smaller kind of chalet lots. We have the ability to do that, and so we're going to look at doing that over the next 3 years. Again, kind of an infill project that does make some sense. We have a couple of infill projects that I think will be useful over the next 3 to 5 years to look at as we finish out the development in really this first north section of the resort. We talked a bit about the marina. I can probably give you more of an update sometime late January on that lease. Not a lot of issues with the lease. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We just have to get everybody at the same place to get it done. So the big item that I know you're interested in is our Forest Service special use permit that we're currently working on. And it's been going a little bit slower than I anticipated, but we haven't started NEPA at this point. There's still some work to do. We're hopeful that we can get the NEPA initiated in time and second quarter of 23. Whenever there's personnel changes, it typically does slow things down. We lost Jake. We went over to the Sawtooth, and so they haven't got that position filled. I think that's happening soon. The Boise supervisor just left, and so they're looking for a replacement for her. And so there's been a lot of transition happening, and oftentimes that will delay projects. So, but kind of based on how this has been going, I wouldn't expect this process to be complete for the next 4 or so, maybe 5 years. This is going to be a long process. It's not going to go quickly. But I mean, that's just how I think it's going to go. We're hoping to acquire 2,100 or so additional acres, and most of that is to the south, and it's the land that would be directly above Heritage. There is a small section that's on the north side of the state lease property that we would acquire, and if we can get that all rolled up and get it approved, that we would add 6 or 7 more lifts, including a gondola. And it would, take us from 2,100 acres that we are today on the state side to adding another 2,100 or so acres. So it kind of doubles the terrain, and then additional 50 or 60 ski runs, more snowmaking pipe and snowmaking guns. So a lot of infrastructure. It looks kind of the way it would now. I mean, it's essentially doubling up there what we have today. Gives us the ability to increase capacity on the mountain. Which, we bump up against capacity now. We have been for the last 2 years. A couple dozen times during the season, we'll run out of parking and we'll have to send people away, or run out of capacity on the mountain. And so, people have discovered not only Idaho, but Valley County and skiing. And so you all know better than anyone, they're coming. So, so there's definitely a need for that. And I think over the next 3 to 5 years, as we get this hopefully completed, it'll be timed right so that demand will continue to be there and this expansion will make sense. So,
Scott, while you're on the subject, have you guys considered about petitioning to take that piece of ground out of the roadless area?
Commissioner, that's a good question. We've talked about it with the Forest Service and we've developed some options, but none of the options would take it out of roadless. So there's some different themes and designations that make sense. And most likely any of those that we do would require rulemaking at the chief's level, which is why you add another 2 years to the process. But to do it right and to make sure that, that no corners are being cut, I think that's the right way to do it. So the last month or so, we've spent a lot of time with the Forest Service, talking through this, and so I know they briefed the Roadless Commission, which I know you're a member of, and
Well, and I'm just wondering if there's something I could do to help with that. I'll do some research on my own to see what that looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the designation we have now, and the Forest Service has their legal opinion. I mean, we can do what we're proposing to do. There's nothing that prohibits it. You just have to think through, what type of appeals you deal with, and so the after the fact. Or you could make some changes to it and change themes, keep it roadless. And then, we've developed a plan on developing that area that is compatible with roadless. And so only about just barely under half of that area is not in the roadless area, right? So it's just that top half. And so it's a weird dynamic.
But I know we changed boundaries on the Roadless Commission because it's pretty obvious this is a roaded area. It shouldn't be in the roadless. And it's kind of an act of Congress to get that done, but it has been done.
Yeah, so we're trying to do it all, address it all through the rulemaking process, which we'll see how that goes. But
And Scott, in that, we talked to ITD this morning, and they're gonna start a corridor transportation plan. I mean, that's gonna be 3 to 5 years for them.
Yep.
So I think it's appropriate that, it's gonna take a little longer. So
Yeah.
it gives us some opportunity to plan the roadways.
Yeah, and
Not
we-
only 55, but we've got to have a longer conversation about West Mountain Road and what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, I think that's a big, and we're obviously anxious to be a part of those discussions and help where we can. But, the state improvement plan or the STIP, it's, I don't know that there's a lot that addresses 55. And it just feels like it's one of those things that everyone's just, hopefully they address it, because it's not just us. I mean, not just Tamarack. I mean, it's everyone. It doesn't feel like they're gonna, really do much on air travel, but road travel is tough, and so there's got to just be some more engine 455, I think, in general.
Well, they did make a commitment to start on that, so
Good.
hopefully we will have that conversation, but
And that will be important for our NEPA process. Traffic is something that gets analyzed during the environmental process for these types of permits, and that'll be a part of this. And so it'll
did
be,
have a conversation too. Our recreation department's trying to put a completion of a trail that's over kind of close to the fishing bridge.
okay.
And so while we had BOR on the phone, we asked for basically an easement all the way down West Mountain to expand all of our easements clear to the resort. And they are considering
That'd be great.
that between them and the Forest Service. So as we have these conversations, we need to start, trying to expand what that outlook
And is
looks
that part of
like
the Valley County's Pathways Initiative? Does that roll up
to the
into that?
fishing bridge, yes.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
The issue is, you kind
Realigning.
of brought it up, is the fact that you deal with these people and then in a few years they're gone.
Exactly.
Oh, it's a real issue. And I remember when we got started, I remember asking Jake, I said, how long have you been here now? And he said, about 3 years. I'm like, doing the math. I'm like, you got like 2 years left. He goes, oh no, I'll be here forever. I wasn't paid yet. I'm like, okay. So anyway, that's the nature of the federal bureaucracy. But the Boise National Forest has been really supportive, and I think they've been in general supportive of outdoor recreation from motorized to non-motorized to ski areas. So I think hopefully that continues. But yeah, it's
Would you
definitely
like to take that 90-degree corner out that where all the wrecks are right before the fishing bridge?
Yeah.
And so they were open to that conversation. So hopefully we can get NEPA done on a broader.
That would be great. I think it's important to mention too, and I mentioned this at P&Z, and I try to mention it anytime I'm talking like this in public. These aren't foregone conclusions. So the way this works, and I think you guys know this, but there's essentially 4 options, 4 alternatives that'll be evaluated, and one of them is a no action. And typically those don't get selected, but this one is a little bit of a roll of the dice because you do have the roadless component. And there's some things. So there's what we're proposing. There's a modified proposal. There's a no action proposal, and then the 4th one can be a hodgepodge of things. So there's a lot of wood to chop on this to go. And like I said, we're 4 maybe 5 years out because of the rule change, and so there's a lot to do. Which the good news is we don't need this done right now, and there's some time to plan on this. And I know the county's anxious for us to be in on a PUD amendment to talk about what that looks like. And of course, we're open to all of that. This was the original land that Valbois started on that we're trying to acquire. They actually, believe it or not, I found that permit. It exists. So Valbois did get a permit from the Forest Service. And it was a little bit smaller, but they weren't able to do anything else, and they lost it after 5 years. And so, this is kind of going full circle a little bit, but it's definitely a big part of our future, and it's what we're working hard to acquire, and we're gonna fight to get it because it's important. If we didn't see the increase in recreation that we're seeing, we probably wouldn't be pushing for it. But there's a demand for it, so.
Well, and even what we're doing, we need it, whether you guys expand or not. Right now we have a situation with some of the roads, so.
Yep.
So, a question I've got is all your expansion on the Forest Service in that roadless versus non-roadless area over there, so that your proposed expansion is all Forest Service?
Yep, correct.
No state involved in that one, yeah. So, and it does sound like that no matter what, you can work with the roadless. Your plan works with the roadless.
Yeah, we've designed it so that we can do this within the roadless. There's definitions that stay under 50 inches on your trails. You can do it. All of our lifts will be, bottom drive terminals. That's not in the roadless area. That's the half that's not in the roadless. So we've developed a plan.
From a resort standpoint, is there a positive of being partly roadless?
There's not. It's all negative. Because it just costs more money to do everything.
Yeah.
And then there's no private stuff you can sell to build on or help, so there's not a lot of income, it's just more of a service.
Yeah, all of our, even on state land, you don't get to develop any real estate, right? It's all commercial for recreation, but there's no upside at all. It's all downside, to be honest. It's just the cost that's involved with having to do things differently. But that's fine. We've evaluated that cost. We've done our analysis, and it makes sense. And
the other side of it, of course, is what what does it mean for public lands, and ownership by the public?
Well, I think in that case, it actually means there's more access to public lands.
Yeah.
So we provide public parking at the new
Yeah.
base area to the south. We open up in a way that's not open right now for access to it. We'll stay within the roadless rules and the roadless definitions, but the public doesn't, there's not a lot of access available right now to those areas.
I think roadless is kind of a limbo classification. I mean, for a reason. I mean, there's a lot of study areas in roadless, various other, yeah.
And
So,
it's really interesting. Most roadless areas in Idaho have been burned up. We've had forest fires go through all of them. So there's not a lot of attractiveness there.
This one's had a lot of burn in it. If you look over the last 10 years, there's been
well,
some.
it's, all this area is gonna have, is used to fire. I mean, that's just the way it is, but,
Yep.
temperate zone. One other question, Scott, roads are a big issue over there. You guys are growing leaps and bounds. What is your preferred solution to the road management in that area as we move forward? I mean, have you thought about that at all? I mean, there's a number of options, you can continue with the management, the way we do it with the roads department. There's other options available to us. Have you given any thought to that as far as where we should be going in that area?
Commissioner, yeah, we've given a lot of thought to it. Obviously the roads within the resort are private, so we handle those. But once you get on to West Mountain and Roseberry, I mean, what we're doing now, we help when the county's, buried in snow, which I think happens. And so we're happy to do that. I don't know what all your options are. I know that in other counties, they have highway districts. Haven't been a resident long enough here yet to know all the dynamics of that, but I can imagine it gets a bit dicey. And so, but I don't know what your options include. We've got options at the resort that we can do on some of our area with some special taxing districts that will be helpful for off-site improvements through what's called a CID, a community infrastructure district. That's an overlay we can do on Tamarack property, where Tamarack owners that buy, pay for this, and then you can, use those. Avamore does those, for example, to improve. I mean, they improve stuff all the way in Eagle to grade separated interchanges. Those are options that are specific for developers and developments. Yeah, I know there's a big conversation to be had around West Mountain Road. I don't know what that looks like, the remaining portion, but I mean, we're, like I've mentioned before, we're always happy to be a participant and at the table for a discussion, but.
There's one thing getting them created, then there's that long-term maintenance issue that we're faced with. And it's a costly business. It's not gonna go away. And as we move forward with trying to figure out how to manage roads, I suppose there's a variety of options, and I just wondered if you'd actually put much thought into that one for your area.
Yeah, we have. I mean, I've seen how highway districts operate. I think Ada County's got, as I recall, one of the only countywide highway districts in the country. I don't know if that's a great model, but yeah, there's different options. I don't know what would be the best here. Maintenance, is always the issue. We've done, I think the last time West Mountain got repaved or rebuilt, sort of in the early Tamarack days, I think we paid for that and did the construction with an agreement with the county. It was about $2 million. That was just, that 3-mile section. I guess we forgot to put stripes on the road though, because it's hard to see when it's wet. In fact, when it snows, it's almost better because you get a little bit of a wider. It seems a little safer.
Right.
And I know there are issues with rights of way. I mean, we went the right of way round with BOR and Forest Service back in the day, and we couldn't get those. So there's definitely a lot of work to do, and it's mostly driven by the resort, no question about it. But there are a lot of other people building out there too, not at Tamarack. So
it's kind of like that area kind of drew that.
Yeah. No, we were the impetus for sure. So I mean, we'll take the blame for that. But there's a lot happening out there, and I know the road department, Jeff. I mean, we had a great agreement last year where we were able to get out and put some equipment on the road, West Mountain Road, to help out. We're doing it this year. So we don't complain because we're just happy to be able to help, you know, it
Good.
makes
We
it better
appreciate
for
that.
everyone. Yep. So it's been good. But yeah, keep us in the loop. We're happy to participate, but I don't know what the solution is.
We're about out of time.
Okay.
Anything else you want to sum up?
I don't think so. I mean, Mid Mountain Restaurant's the only thing I would mention. It's going to be, we'll start that next summer, and it will be completed and open December of 24. And the charter school has been a success. We opened it up it opened. We didn't open it. It opened in September, and they've got 87 or 88 kids.
Oh my
K through 8.
God, that's awesome.
And so we just provide the land at $1 a year for their lease, and they do everything else. So we don't have we're not a part of the charter school. We're just giving them a home. So it's been great.
So what do you need from us as far as an action item? You need a motion from us to,
Just a motion to accept the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval.
hey, are you guys good with this?
I would
Good
move,
with it.
I would move that we accept the planning and zoning's proposal on the PUD for Tamarack.
I'll
A
second that.
3-year extension. I better put that in.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the extension to 2025. Correct?
Yes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
Scott
Thanks,
wrote a
Scott.
daycare grant for the WDC and got $166,000 for their daycare too, so good job.
I couldn't believe, did you see the Delta for Valley County? How it was incredible.
Yeah, plus we're writing another one for the senior center here.
We're going to use that to keep
Center.
expanding our facility because it's the only way we can recruit employees.
And just expanding the number of seats available in Valley County is gonna help everybody tremendously, so.
All right,
yeah.
we're gonna recess for lunch and we'll see everybody back here at 1 o'clock.